Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at the Paramount City Council Chambers. This is a special notice that public participation accessibility for the following meeting scheduled for June the 16th of the Paramount City Council, the successor agency for the Paramount Redevelopment Agency, and the Paramount Housing Authority. Pursuant to Executive Order N-29-20, executed by the Governor of California on March the 17th, 2020, and as a response to mitigating the spread of coronavirus known as COVID-19, the adjourned meeting of the City Council scheduled for Tuesday, June 16th at 5 p.m. will allow members of the public to participate and address the City Council during the open session of the meeting via live stream and or by teleconference only. And with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Lemons to start the adjourned meeting of the City Council. Mayor Lemons.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. I'm going to call to order the Paramount meeting for June 16, 2020. And may I have roll call of council members, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Aguayo.
Here.
Councilmember Guillen.
Here.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings.
Here.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
I'm here.
Mayor Lemons.
Here. We have public comments, Mr. Moreno?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have 10 public comments that are written and 3 comments that are verbal. So we will start with the verbal comments, and I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Mr. Andrew Villalpando, who will handle the 3 verbal comments.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Just to remind the City Council, public comments will be done via telephone. I will be calling each person requesting public comment to speak other public comments to the City Council. So bear with me for 1 second while I get the first caller on the line.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Raquel de Casas.
Yes?
I'm contacting you regarding your request for public comment for the Paramount City Council meeting. You're now being broadcast live to the City Council. Your public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I will give you notice when you have 20 seconds left, and your time starts now.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As you're aware, if you watch the news or participate in social media, there has been a large and appropriate response to the murder of Black Americans by police officers taking place over the last several days. As leaders, you have a responsibility to Black citizens to openly and loudly affirm that they are safe in Paramount from racism and discrimination. That you vehemently oppose and condemn the actions of the police officer in Minneapolis who murdered George Floyd in cold blood, along with the hundreds who went before him. Their lives have been traumatized repeatedly. I do not understand when there would be a more appropriate time to release a statement acknowledging George Floyd and racial injustices in our country. 886 people in LA County have been murdered by police since 2000. How are we helping our Black neighbors? What resources have we offered them? Have we reached out to have we reached out to them asking what they need from us, how we can support them? How are we working with our non-Black citizens to remind them that inherent bias runs deep and that we are responsible for unlearning racism? When COVID-19 began and stay-at-home orders were issued, Paramount set up programs for seniors in the community. There were flyers and information spread to reach out and help. There was rental assistance information. Residents were encouraged to check on elderly, disabled, and health-compromised neighbors. Residents were encouraged to shop local. How will we address this with our leaders? Ignoring it is not an option. We do a deep disservice to ourselves by pretending that these events aren't impacting all of us, particularly our Black neighbors and their families. I ask these questions because I care deeply about the people who live in Paramount. We have a responsibility and we must stay true to our values. If Paramount is truly a great place to live, we must continue to prove it. Our neighbors deserve this, our culture deserves this. To this end, there are many anti-racism educators that make a living by doing this work, and it would behoove the city to pay for them to come in and teach on what is happening. I have recommendations for these and references for these educators. As a member, I'm ready to craft a response. Please feel free to contact me. I look forward to being a part of the response and reminding Paramount citizens that we care about their safety, well-being, and right to exist and live free from racism and injustice. I yield my time.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be getting the next caller on the line. 1 second, please. Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Tracy Raglan.
This is her speaking.
Hi, I'm contacting you regarding your request for public comment for the Paramount City Council meeting. You are now being broadcast
Okay.
live to the City Council. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and I will give you notice when you have 20 seconds left. Your time starts now.
Pull over because I thought they told me at 6 o'clock. Okay. The girl told me at 6. But let me, okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, we'll go ahead and reset the timer for 3 minutes. And it'll begin when you're ready.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. My name is Tracy Raglan, whereas I've been a resident and homeowner since the year 2000, which consists of 20 years and soon will be 21 years. In the beginning of my residency here in Paramount, I was a little reluctant to live in the city, but after many improvements and new businesses coming to the community, my whole demeanor begun to change on how I view the city today. I am here to petition that all fireworks be banned from the city of Paramount, along with the fireworks stand. And the reason why I say that is because it has got out of control. The people are not only using the fireworks for just the 4th of July, but they're using them it's causing other people to come to our community by using illegal fireworks, and it's becoming a problem. I have children here in my home that's really scared and afraid, and so I'm here to petition that the city come up with an ordinance to ban not only illegal fireworks, but also the fireworks that they allow to happen in our community on the 4th of July, as well as banning fireworks stands. That's my plea with the city, and if there is anything that I need to back my reasons for doing that, I would be glad to get some other documentations, as I know other cities have banned fireworks from their city. And hopefully, and my hope is that you hear my plea, and also you take into consideration that fireworks is not only a hazard to our community, but also a hazard to our family members and the residents here at here in Paramount. I know I probably went over a little bit, I don't know, but anyway, I pray that you hear my plea that these fireworks be banned, because our children are scared. They have no respect for our city, and it's tearing our city up. Thank you. My name again is Tracy Raglan.
Thank you, Ms. Raglan.
Okay, one moment while I get the next caller on the line.
Hello.
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Alejandro Yanis.
This is Alejandro.
Hello, I'm contacting you regarding your request for public comment for the Paramount City Council meeting. You're now being broadcast live to the City Council. Your public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and I will give you notice when you have 20 seconds left. Your time starts now.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Councilwoman. I'm no stranger to the City Council. I continue to request adult recreation in the City of Paramount. We do not have any adult recreation. The City Council, prior City Council members have not set aside in their budget any amount of money to be allocated towards adult recreation. Some of you have been working for the city for many years. Some of the council members have been many years. And my question to you is, have you ever assigned any money to adult recreation, handball in particular? Have you ever addressed handball tournaments? Have you ever had your Parks and Recreation Director set aside money for handball tournaments? I was sent a letter regarding a Paramount Cup that had basketball, soccer, and other sports, but handball was never included. I'd like to know why. I'd like to know why handball was never included in any sport at any time in the last 25 years. We've only brought up the lack of adult recreation to prove to the fact that no other resident is interested in adult recreation, but handball players have repeatedly signed petition and requested our courts be rebuilt. We're only having our courts requested to be rebuilt from prior council people who never participated in any recreation. My question is to you, council members, have you ever participated in any adult recreation in the city of Paramount? I hope you stay safe, and it's terrible that you can't live up to the responsibilities that you promised to your residents.
Okay, that was the last caller for general public comment.
Okay, we have some written emails, correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor, but before we turn it over to our city clerk, I just want to verify with Andrew, we do have one for the item number 6, correct, the budget?
Yes, that's correct. We do have one for item number 6.
I just wanted to share that, so when we get to item number 6, the budget, after the presentation, we do have one caller that we need to call back. Okay, now I will return it over to our city clerk, Ms. Heidi Luce, who will read the written comments, and I believe we have 10 of them.
That is correct, sir. There are 10 comments, and I will read them in the order they were received. The first comment is from Christopher Kelly, a Paramount resident. The sheriff's office responsible for the city of Paramount has to be given the authority to do something more effectively curtail the street racing and street takeover that occurs almost nightly and certainly every Friday and Saturday nights. I live near Paramount and Alondra, and every night it sounds like they're filming Fast and the Furious 22. I've had 3 close calls on California Street where I was almost hit by someone doing donuts on the street. The next comment is from Paramount resident John Valdivieso. I am writing this email to express my frustration by the lack of a plan to help fight the big issue we're having with illegal fireworks. I've been a resident of Paramount for 4 years, and it seems to be getting worse every year. Something has to be done. My dogs go crazy because of the fireworks. Some people on the Paramount Crime Watch Facebook page have said their parents have heart issues and the loud explosions are causing them unneeded stress. Something has to be done. I encourage you to visit/join the Facebook page to at least show face and help us understand what the city leadership plans to do. It's time to show us what actions you plan to take. Talk is cheap. The next comment is from Victoria Cassis. I am resident and homeowner of this once calm and peaceful city. I am writing to you to voice my concerns because the residents and homeowners of San Vicente Street, as well as other, have become frustrated and fed up with all the street racing, blocking of intersections to do donuts, the speeding down residential street, especially near our children's schools, and fireworks from April to July. This has gotten out of control, and there has to be some way to put a stop to this. Street racing, blocking the intersection, cops are always too late. We need more than 3 Lakewood sheriffs to patrol all of Paramount. Paramount needs its own police station, not just a substation open part-time and focused on public safety and street sweeping tickets. Give us our own police station, full-time and staffed. Fireworks. We call and report it, and police says there's not enough patrol. They're busy on other urgent calls. What's the point on calling? This just disappoints us and the city leadership has. We have to take initiative to get control of our city. We try to do our part and shop Paramount, be neighborhood watch, report issues, but we need more resources in the city. We've thought about it moving since we don't feel safe here anymore. It's sad not to feel safe in your own home. I would also like to add, how can we keep the gate to Salud Park on San Vicente Street closed? It's better this way. My neighbors and I would appreciate it. Since the park opened, it's been a nightmare. Our homes have been burglarized, cars stolen and broken into. We've asked for more patrol on this street. Not so long ago, a boy was shot. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from resident Mike Radis. As some of you may already know, we had another street racing sideshow incident at Vermont and Alondra this weekend. My wife was knocked to the ground while I unfortunately was across the street locking up the house. I was unable to do anything, and the assailant got away without any consequence. A woman was receiving medical attention from Engine 31 at the time, and the presence of firefighters did nothing to deter the street racing activity. They blocked the entire intersection, lit fireworks, and began doing donuts. The time between initial calls and arrival of the deputies / dispersal, as far as I can tell, lasted somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes. I had called at about 10:13 p.m. after it had already started, and when I looked out the window and noticed and timed around 5 minutes, and the account of a woman stuck in her vehicle behind the crowd and unable to get home says it was around 8 minutes. This woman was stuck behind the mob on Alondra Boulevard with her children in the car, unable to reach her mother, who was being loaded in an ambulance and taken away. She did not get to see her mom off in the ambulance because of the street racers. I will not accept this in my community, and I don't think anyone else should either. Between the threats, assaults, and disruption of this level, even in the presence of and TO, our first responders themselves, I am unable to see things as any better than when I started calling on the city and the Sheriff's Department for help several months ago. Please give us and all physical traffic control devices and features like speed bumps, bots, dots, etc., and increased enforcement necessary to deter these repeat illegal sideshows from being commonplace in Paramount. We need to be following these vehicles and preventing them from using our town as a preferred venue for this reckless and illegal activity. The city and Sheriff's Department have been communicating with me regarding this matter, but it is still unresolved, and we need to stop this at all costs before someone is badly injured or killed. The next comment is from resident Eddie Cruz. I would like to thank the city and our sheriff's substation for their collective work on addressing the firework issue in our city. Over the past 72 hours, there has been a steady decrease in firework activity in my part of the city. Nights are getting quieter once again. Also, big thank you to our officers for quickly addressing street takeovers. Although they still take place from time to time, I don't hear them happening as often as they once did. Also, thank you for the quick response when they do take place. With much appreciation, Eddie Cruz. The next comment is from resident Maria Percy. My family and I have been residents of Paramount since 1968. In all of the decades we have been residents, we have seen the city change in many ways, some good and some bad. We've been here during the good and during the bad. Right now, we are in our city during the bad, this pandemic. I would like to commend our city council for the extraordinary work they have done during this difficult time. I am so happy to see them setting up events such as the mask giveaways and the food drives for our city's needy. They have been present doing the work as well. They've been amazing with relaying information that is beneficial to our city, and they've been on top of informing us when something goes wrong, along with solutions to solve those problems. They have stepped up and shown great leadership during this trying time. I know this isn't an easy task. In the recent months, I've had concerns and have reached out to a few of the city council members, and let me tell you that I got replies immediately with immediate solutions to my issues. They've gone above and beyond to help me with answers and paperwork, ranging from business questions to getting me paperwork to help my tenants apply for rent assistance. In conclusion, I would like to thank our wonderful city council for all their hard work. The next comment is from resident Romero Mejia Jr. I live on Mott's Street, Paramount. I support defunding the police. The next comment is from Alba Pont. I would like to express how serious the illegal fireworks have become. 4th of July in Paramount feels like it lasts months, with fireworks going off, especially late in the evenings. How can a city sell fireworks when they are illegal? How can anyone sleep or think about what it does to our pets? Another issue that is just as serious is cars racing or doing donuts in our streets. I have a 15-year-old who will be driving next year. I am worried for her safety behind the wheel. I think the residents of Paramount deserve better. We pay our taxes like everyone else, but the results on these two issues continues the same. Nothing is being done. Feeling extremely disappointed and frustrated. The next comment is from Frank Garcia. Hello, I am Frank Garcia, a lifetime resident of the city of Paramount. I would just like to say thank you for adding the dedicated deputy to the fireworks problem over the weekend. I know by the time residents call, report, and by the time patrol comes, the people are setting off fireworks are long gone. But I called this weekend, and when the patrol car did come down my street, things did seem to subside. If I may, this seems to be a lot like the graffiti problem we had years ago. Until people who know the problem, who are lighting the fireworks or doing the donuts, either convince them to stop or just report them. The problem of noise can turn into fire or death very easily. So again, thank you, and I do appreciate your effort to control these problems for us. The last comment is from Gail Rosales. I reside in Paramount. This is a public comment for tonight's City Council meeting. As a resident, my concern is for the safety and quality of life for all residents. The street racing, donuts, and illegal fireworks are out of control, and this needs to be seriously addressed. Why isn't more being done to enforce the laws? What is the City Council plan for action to address these safety issues? Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes the public comment submitted via email.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Before we move on into the agenda, a lot of these comments were on two topics that I know that has been working really hard to try to address. I think it would be appropriate. Ms. Moreno, can you give an update on some of these items? Because I know that they're being addressed and that there's the answers to some of them, and maybe we could give an update.
Yes, absolutely, Madam Mayor. We have prepared an update as well as in discussions with our city attorney and the captain of Lakewood Station, as well as our public works director, because one of the comments involved street improvements. So I've talked to each one of those individuals I just mentioned, and I asked them to also provide an update as well. First off, in regards to the fireworks, there seems to be a little bit of confusion with legal and illegal fireworks. The fireworks that are illegal are not allowed, period. They are banned. They are not allowed. The legal fireworks that we all know of and that we see the fireworks stands, those are considered the safe and sane ones. Now, those don't go on sale till the end of the month. Those have not started to be sold and discharged in the community yet. So there is a difference. The council cannot allow illegal fireworks to be discharged in the community. No city in California can allow that to happen. So I just wanted to make that clear distinction. Now, in regards to what has occurred, what everybody has been discussing over the past half hour, yes, this weekend it definitely was a busy weekend for our sheriffs today, deputies responding to these types of calls for both fireworks and for street racing. I'd like to first start off with some information about the fireworks. This past weekend, there were 51 calls of illegal fireworks. Now, that's much, much higher than what we see 3 weeks before the 4th of July. We did respond to that because we did see it creeping up on us earlier in the week. So at that point, we decided to contract out for a dedicated fireworks suppression unit. There are 2 deputies in the car in the field between the hours of 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. This unit itself responded to 44 out of the 51 calls for service for illegal fireworks. And the average response time on that was between 8 to 10 minutes. Unfortunately, they were unable to issue any administrative citations for the violations. And the difficulty is that when the deputies arrive in their patrol cars, the violators could see them coming and ran away from them. And a citation can only be issued, as we know, if a deputy witnesses the person lighting the firework. The Sheriff's Department has informed us that they will be revising their approach to this in the coming days. And as city staff, we will work directly with the Sheriff's Department to give them all the necessary tools to effectively address this. And this would include tentatively a dispatcher that is dedicated to Paramount fireworks calls from 6 p.m. to midnight. This would be a much more effective approach to get the calls dispatched out in the field as quickly as possible. We're also instructing the deputies who are working that specific car to call back the informant to obtain additional information or report to the informant their whereabouts. For instance, if they do respond to a call of fireworks and the information is provided by the informant, a callback number, for instance, the deputies, while out in the field, can use their county-issued cell phone and call the informant back to either get him more information or inform them that they are handling the call. So this is just going a little bit above and beyond what is normally done. Additionally, we're quickly planning to start an illegal fireworks reward program. The guidelines could include the following, and again, we are putting the finishing touches on it. However, the guidelines could include anyone who provides information leading to a fireworks citation issued to a person that is discharging illegal fireworks could be eligible to receive a $500 reward. Anyone who provides information leading to a fireworks citation issued to a person that is caught selling illegal fireworks could be eligible to receive a $1,000 reward. So those are the two things that we're looking at. Obviously, with this program, the person must leave their contact information, and their contact information will be kept confidential. So all this, we are trying to get communications out to our residents, and we already started that with regards to the fireworks. We deployed 6 electronic message boards at several areas around town. We have the large wooden framed message boards that have been displayed on our hotspots as well. We also have a street banner that's currently hanging on Paramount Boulevard south of Somerset Boulevard. And we also distributed door hangers to individual residences in areas where we do get a lot of calls for illegal fireworks. And lastly, we are providing a lot of social media posts, and we will continue to do that as well to update everybody on that. Now, moving over to street racing, as we heard, was the other big issue that we had in town. From Friday, June 12th to Sunday, June 14th, the deputies responded to 10 calls of illegal street racing at 9 locations throughout town. Now, I must point out that not all these incidents were for intersection donut takeovers. Some of them may have been for actually cars that were racing, but nonetheless, 10 calls that were called in at that time. So an average deployment rate of 3 deputies per call occurred this weekend, with the exception of one outlier, and that was an incident that occurred on Vermont and Alondra. That incident at Vermont Alondra involved 9 patrol cars, including deputies that responded from Paramount, Bellflower, and Lakewood. A little bit more about the Alondra, Vermont call, because that did get a lot of attention, and there were several social media posts on that. The logs that we pulled up from the LA County Sheriff's Department showed that the call was received at 10:14 p.m., and that the deputies started arriving at the scene at 10:18 p.m. For a response time of 4 minutes. A report was taken of a battery to an individual, and also there was a claim that the fire personnel from Station 31 were prevented from responding to a situation nearby. The Sheriff's Department is currently verifying that occurred. Additional items related to the street racing, our own Sergeant Sanchez, he will be providing direction to the deputies as it relates to staying on site after the street racing stops. Because as we see many people that kind of hang out, is what we're hearing, to watch, and then when everybody else leaves, they continue to hang out. So additionally, the SAO team, which is our special assignment officers, They will be working 1 to 2 evenings to assist with street racing. I've been in contact with Captain David Springle of the Lakewood Station, and I'm asking him to see if we can borrow from another sheriff's station a mobile camera that is mounted on a trailer that could be deployed at various locations throughout the city. This camera actually reads and stores license plate information. And finally, as you'll soon hear in the budget presentation tonight, we do have some good news. We applied for and we were awarded a grant by the state of California for $69,000, and that will be specifically to address the enforcement of street racing. So we're trying to do all we can in regards to that. To continue with this, I'll turn it over now to our City Attorney, John Kavanaugh, and he would like to share some information about what he's been working on. Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, thank you, John. Mayor Lemons and members of the City Council. Sometime last week, the city manager contacted our office, and this was before the incident happened over the weekend, and requested that we do a preliminary assessment of the street racing issue that does seem to plague the city of Paramount, along with a number of cities throughout California. And so we spent some time conducting that preliminary review. In addition to those recommendations that the city manager has given to you previously before my verbal report, those are some of the things that are very, very good and we think will probably be very effective. But one of the things I think we've come to the conclusion with is that in order to implement a successful strategy to deal with this problem, there has to be several different responses to it. I think taken collectively, we believe we can have a successful strategy in addressing it. It is interesting to know that the street racers, and they seem to be calling themselves no longer street racers, but street takeovers. They want to be recognized by that. They are a very well-organized group or groups of individuals. They've been doing this for a long time. They seem to know where they want to be, when the police are going to be. And so it is a challenging issue. It's not impossible, but it's challenging. And so what we did is that we took a preliminary review and assessment of various other cities on this matter, and we feel that there are a number of things that maybe we can implement with the council's blessing to try to combat this street racing or reckless driving. And one of them is developing and enlisting community support to address this problem. The other item is to create a publicity campaign that serves to both educate and warn the street races the legal consequences of breaking our laws. That, of course, can be used through the city's website, through social media, but it's an effort to let them know that once you come into the city of Paramount, we are going to be watching them. The third idea or third item that would involve a number of departments, including my own, is collaborating with both law enforcement and the district attorney's office and the city attorney's office to access and assess the effectiveness and adequacy of existing state law and county ordinances to try to control the problem. One of the things that we would like to look at in more detail is to increase both the impound and administrative fees for an owner to retrieve the vehicle impounded as a result of a violation. At this point, there are statutory fines for illegal street racing and reckless driving that we're seeing. That may not be sufficient because for many of these, it's kind of like the cost of business to perform that. We would like to look into further increasing those impound fees, as well as establishing administrative fees and storage fees so that it becomes a little bit more costly for the owner of the vehicle to retrieve it once it is impounded. The second thing is to maybe adopt regulations that would make it unlawful for the individual to be a spectator in an illegal speed contest. So in other words, we would not only look at the individual racers or their vehicles, but those spectators that are in attendance at these events. Obviously, most of these racers like to have an audience to watch them. If we put some pressure on the spectators or let them know that they are also accountable, that may mitigate the desire to want to race in our intersections. The third item that we are looking at is considering adopting a city forfeiture ordinance where it is declared that a vehicle used in an illegal speed contest is declared a public nuisance. And what that means is that we focus in on the vehicle itself and declare that a public nuisance because it was used in an illegal speed contest. What happens then is that we get the license plate, we go into court, and we ask the court for an order for a forfeiture order. In where case, then the city is able to permanently seize the vehicle if it was used in the race or an exhibition of speed, and the driver has a prior conviction of certain serious driving offenses, for example, the reckless driving or evading officers once they come on the scene. That's a very that can be a very effective measure because, again, it's directed toward the vehicle, not necessarily the driver, but the driver or the owner never gets their car back as a result of that. As a result of some of this preliminary research we've done, the city manager has directed that a meeting be scheduled, which is scheduled currently for next Monday, which will include public safety, the district attorney's office, and the city attorney's office to discuss strategies to try to implement or come up with a policy of implementation that we can present to you for your approval. And at that point, we're hoping that we can create a task force that would encompass a number of responses to deal with this problem. I'd be happy to answer any questions as a result of my report, but that concludes it.
Mayor Lemons, if I can hold any council questions till after we get through. Like I mentioned, I had a couple more speakers line up. And the next one I'd like to turn to is Adrianna Figueroa, our Public Works Director. There were some calls for speed humps and bot dots, things like that we've seen around town, street improvements that could help for speeding. But it's not just a click of the fingers and it's done. So I wanted her to kind of explain a little bit about just those two real briefly. Adrianna?
Sure. Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Yes, we have experienced bot dots in town. We, in fact, have placed them at certain locations throughout the city. However, we've noticed that when it comes to people doing donuts or racing, it really doesn't deter that activity. In fact, we've actually have taken pictures of donut markings right around bot dots that I'd be happy to share with you. The bot dots and the regulations for bot dots changed many years ago. There are limits to how big we how big those bot dots can be made or can be installed. They're limited to 4 inches each, and so it really does not act as a deterrent for donut markings on the streets. In terms of speed humps, there are criteria, obviously, that we have to look at. Our city engineer needs to make a technical assessment or a traffic analysis to study the location, because not all locations are viable locations for speed humps. There are several factors that we take into consideration, such as the uses of the street, whether it's entirely residential or if it has a mix perhaps of residential and industrial or residential and commercial. That plays into it. We also have the limitation on the length of the street. It needs to be less than 600 feet. And then, of course, speed humps cannot be installed within 200 feet of an intersection, and they cannot be installed in front of driveways or over underground access covers or adjacent catch basins or drainage type of structures. So we do have quite a bit of limitation when it comes to speed humps, and our city engineer needs to make a full traffic analysis to determine, again, the viable location for those.
Great, thank you, Ms. Figueroa. Lastly, wanted to turn it over to law enforcement. I believe we still have Captain Springle on the line. We also have two of our Paramount sergeants who are in the council chambers with our staff. So, Captain Springle, are you on the line right now?
I am. Good evening, John.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to talk to you guys. I look forward to seeing you when we can actually do that again. The quality of life issues currently are definitely our top priority with the Sheriff's Department and working with the city. I'll just briefly speak on fireworks. Proactively, we're working with the public safety team to have positive enforcement on the firework offenders. I know Sergeants Sanchez and Fitzgerald are putting together a comprehensive plan that's going to really try to address these in a number of ways to where we can actively issue the citations administratively to try to impact that, as well as I know that we're developing, working with City Manager and Adrianna, getting more cars out there specifically designed to deal with fireworks. So I know we're addressing that. With regard to the street racing and the takeovers, that is a huge concern for all of us. It has been for the last several months. The problems that we're facing is we're dealing with a number of repeat offenders. They do like to come into the city. It's not the only city that's being impacted, but obviously it's the one we're focusing on. These guys and the people we're dealing with are highly developed with their planning, to include even false calls for service that'll take our deputies and tie them up in different parts of the town as they come in and do this. These guys are very calculated. They continue to communicate and are able to get in and out very quickly, drawing quick crowds through social media and other things that we have a hard time tracking. We continue to pre-plan when able and use the resources that we have to try to positively impact it. But even when we do find successes, we find that this continues to go on. So we're going to continue to work together with the city, utilizing and thinking outside the box when we can to try to make these impacts, but it's going to continue to be a challenge. I wish we had a simple answer to eradicate the problem, but we're going to continue to do our best to proactively address these issues. And we're very thankful for the support of the city. Coming out of the COVID and then the civil unrest that followed, we're finally back to much more normal operations with regard to our deployments and our personnel. And we definitely look forward to addressing the quality of life issues that are concerns to the citizens and community of Paramount. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Captain, if you could just stay with us for a minute. I do have one question for you that you didn't cover in the report. Are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, and that is, we had a lot of calls from our residents regarding calling the station during the time of the civil unrest. Some claim afterwards stating that they were calling for fireworks and they were told that you would not be responding to those calls. And I was wondering if you could explain that.
Yes, ma'am, I can, and I'm sorry I did not address that initially. During the response to the civil unrest, especially when all our units were mobilized, we were actively and regularly sending response teams countywide to address the ongoing civil unrest that we're experiencing. As a result, on a number of occasions, there were Paramount community members that called, and our deputy or our desk, we did not dispatch calls specifically for firework-related incidents. And what happened is we took the information, we put that information out to our deputies to respond to the areas to see if they could minimize the fireworks that were going on. Obviously, now that we're out of the civil unrest window, that was during a 1 week period that ended, let's see, I lost track of my weeks, last Monday, I believe. And over the weekend, again, like Mr. Moreno indicated, we did respond to a number of calls for service. That is no longer the case with regard to people being told that we will not respond. We are responding to every call for service, and our personnel in dispatch understand the importance of the quality of life issues, and we will be focusing our energy on that. It was only during that time of civil unrest that we were not responding, to keep our units available to respond to anything that might flare up within the cities. And
So-
hopefully that answered the question.
Well, it does answer the question. However, I got a little bit of a mixed message there, so if I can clarify. So the callers were told we're not responding to those calls. However, you just said that you dispatched the calls to the officers, and if they were able to get to them, then they would. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, let me just clarify a little bit better on that. The information was shared with our units in the field. There was no calls for service generated, but the areas that were impacted by fireworks, that information was put out to our patrol deputies, so if they were in the area, that they would do drive-bys in those areas to try to minimize the fireworks, but there was no direct calls for service that were dispatched during that time window.
Okay, so with having that clarification in mind, could I just ask you this? Would not a more appropriate response from the call-in center, instead of saying we're not responding to those calls, to explain we're busy with the civil unrest, however, if the deputies are in the field are able to get to your call, they certainly will, rather than just blanketly say we're not responding to your call? Doesn't that send an inappropriate message?
It does, and I can tell you I listened to a number of phone calls regarding this issue personally, and the majority of them were handled that way, as you suggested, but there were others that were obviously not, and I do agree with what you're saying. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain. Is that all of the reports, John?
Yes, ma'am, and we do have our two Paramount sergeants once again in the audience too as well, if you have any questions for them on the operations side.
Okay, well, I'm going to allow, before we move on in the agenda, for the council members. Does anyone have a question? If so, just please identify yourself and then speak.
Absolutely. This is Vice Mayor Olmos. My questions are, I have a little bit for actually the attorney, but I do have for Captain Springle. Thank you for your update, but I have to tell you, Captain, as a resident here, and having to go through what we did this weekend and actually the 2 weeks, it's really, really unacceptable. And like I said, I know you guys are probably trying to do your best, but what I'm trying to understand is when these sheriffs are going to these residents' houses because of fireworks calls, and then they can't identify them or they can't find anybody who's doing them, I kind of feel like the sheriff going to the house is for no reason. I mean, does that make sense, in a sense of like, it's almost like we're utilizing sheriff time, but nothing's being executed. So we're telling the residents, call. We need you to call to identify hotspots. And then they're upset because when they call, they're told that they can't come out for calls. And then when the deputy does get there within, you're saying 8 to 10 minutes, they get there and then nothing's done. So John, what I'm saying is that we need to find a better way to engage our community to be able to do more, in a sense of, do we educate our community on how to maybe document where the fireworks are happening, or viewing them, or taking pictures? I mean, I'm just thinking out of the box, you guys, I mean, is there drones available for us to use? I'm just saying, yes.
Your concerns are very valid, and if I can elaborate a little bit on what you're saying, because I agree 100%.
Is this Councilmember Guillen speaking?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
And Vice Mayor Brenda Olmos, I also agree with you. And a couple of the things the attorney said, Kavanaugh, and then something I heard from John Moreno, and then maybe the captain can clarify. So one thing I heard is one of the plans to put in place would be community support. The community clearly is reaching out with these issues. The community support is already there. One of the things that I had to question was, and I may be out of the loop, but fireworks, illegal fireworks, selling them and setting them off, is that not still a felony, Captain Springle?
I would have to brief myself back up. It's definitely illegal, and we do make arrests for illegal fireworks.
Right, I believe it's
with
still a
regard to
felony.
that, yeah.
I believe it's still a felony, and I asked that because one of the statements that was made, and it says the deputies need to see it. Well, in order just to see it, in order to have to see it, that would be a misdemeanor crime not committed in their presence. Then it needs to be a citizen's arrest. But illegal fireworks, the selling and lighting off of illegal fireworks is a felony. So the deputies do not have to see it. If they have probable cause to arrest somebody based on what our community is telling them, and there's any type of evidence, they can make an arrest without the deputies having to have seen it. That's only for a misdemeanor crime does the deputy have to see it. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page, because if the community is already there, and this goes with both the fireworks and it goes with the illegal racing, because the illegal racing and the street takeovers, that's a word. That's a subject that we're talking about. But the fact is, this is reckless driving with 3 to 5 violations occurring by one vehicle at a time. That is a felony. And so if we have the follow-up information on who these people are, because community members are getting license plates, a felony can be followed up upon, and these people can get arrested afterwards. And I understand we haven't had the resources, and I completely get that with, 2 sons of mine being out in the field right now. I get that. But on the same token, community members really need to be heard, and they need to be brought into the picture, and we all need to be on the same page that these are felonies. And with probable cause, we can make arrests, and we can do follow-up investigation.
Thank you,
So I
Council.
just want to make that clear.
And I think it would be good if we got clarification on that issue first, because I will tell you that is the first time I've heard that information, and I think that's valuable information. Is there anyone there that can bring clarity at this time, or are we going to need some time for this to be looked into?
Ma'am, this is the captain.
Yes.
With regard to the proactive enforcement of sales and purchasing of illegal fireworks, that is obviously a type of investigation that Sergeant Sanchez, Sergeant Fitzgerald, and the team will be looking into and, conducting potential investigations on. I would definitely defer that to you, but that is something that obviously has already been considered and will actively be pursued in some capacity. With regard to the actual enforcement of people lighting off fireworks, the part that we're enforcing being the administrative citations, that is obviously something we have to observe to be able to issue those people the citations. And we're looking into different ways that we can be better at that, to where these people are not running away as soon as they see the police car. So we're thinking of different proactive ways, and the team's going to be actively enforcing those type of things over the next several weeks. And I hope that was responsive.
Thank you, Captain Springle. Actually, yeah, I would just like staff to get back to us with clarity regarding what Councilmember Guillen has brought up about these being felony offenses and not misdemeanor offenses, which is basically what I've been told all along. So if you're not prepared to answer that at this time, I'm fine with that, but I would like a report to come back to all of us so that we know exactly what we're dealing with. There may be caveats that make her right or wrong, but I'm in agreement that we need to be on the same page. Are we dealing with misdemeanors, or are we dealing with felonies?
Madam Mayor, this is the city attorney. I will get that information to you right away.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Is there another question from the council?
Madam Mayor, this is Adrianna Lopez. If I could just interject. One of the reasons why we went to administrative citations is because when they were issuing a county cite for any type of crime, filing at Compton was basically non-existent for these violations, whether it was a misdemeanor or a felony. A lot of the times the defendant would just get 2 hours of community service and a small fine. So that's when we decided to go to an administrative citation, because the filing DAs at Compton were really doing nothing with these.
Was the filing, though, as a misdemeanor or as a felony?
Well, in regards to the felony, having illegal fireworks, a lot of the time it depended on the amount that they had.
Oh. Okay, that's the stuff we need clarity on. That's what I'm saying. There could be some caveats to this. I'm not an officer like Councilmember Gee, and I don't have that background, so I'm sure the rest of us would certainly appreciate knowing the information, you know, what's correct.
And one quick little statement, Adrianna, this is Councilmember Guillen, but even if Compton isn't filing these cases and they're just getting community service, when you pull up and run their name and it shows a pattern that they've been arrested and how it was disposed, it will still tell a deputy a lot, even if it didn't get filed the first time or the second time and all they got was community service. It's better to make the arrest and have it in their package, my opinion. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, and I think these are great conversations for us to have when we get all the data, and perhaps at the summit that we have planned a little later, and we can have all the information filed. So thank you for contributing that, Councilmember Gay, and I think that's valuable information. Is there anyone else? If not, then we'll move on in the agenda. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, Adrianna, John. All great information. I know that you guys have been working really hard to try to come up with solutions. I will let you know that I was actually in a meeting today with 6 of our surrounding cities, and I even asked them, you know, I said, if any of you out there have innovative solutions to street racing or illegal fireworks, we're certainly facing that conundrum in our city, and I'd appreciate any help you could give. And the response was, please get back to us when you figure it out. We want help too. So I know it's regional, I know it's tough, but we're going to work together and a solution. So thank you all for all of your input. It's much appreciated. With that,
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion from council?
So moved, almost.
Where Stallings, second.
Okay, the consent calendar is being moved by Vice Mayor Olmos and seconded by Quare. Stallings, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. The first item is approval of a private donation to the Southeast Los Angeles County Workforce Board.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. In a little less than 3 weeks, we will officially become full-fledged members of the Southeast Los Angeles County Workforce Development Board. As I've mentioned in past reports, this is about 18 months in the making. So Mayor Lemons was appointed to the policy board, and then there's also the development board itself, and we need to make an appointment to that board. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Mr. Andrew Villalpando, who will handle the item. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, as John mentioned, in April, the City Council authorized a joint powers agreement with our new workforce development provider, the Southeast Los Angeles County Workforce Development Board, otherwise known as SELCO. The agreement takes effect on July 1. SELCO, Workforce Development Board, provides assistance to job seekers with accessing employment opportunities, education, training, and support services to succeed in the labor market. As a member of SELCO, the city is required to select members to serve on 2 SELCO boards of directors. The first, as John mentioned, was assigning a council member to their policy board, which oversees and directs regional policy decisions for the Workforce Development Board. And then the second board of directors is a collection of private business representatives representing the private sector to serve on their Workforce Development Board. As John mentioned, the City Council appointed Mayor Lemons to the policy board at its May 19th meeting. And now the City Council needs to appoint 2 private sector members to their Workforce Development Board. Workforce Development Board members serve two-year staggered terms that start July 1 so that appointments are made each year. Nominations are made by the Paramount Chamber of Commerce to the City Council, who will then approve the nominations. So if approved tonight, the private board members will be confirmed by the Workforce Development Policy Board at their next meeting. Because this is the city's first year as part of Celico and to maintain staggered terms, we'll recommend to approve one nomination for 1 year and the other for 2 years. The Paramount Chamber of Commerce wrote a letter to the City Council, which is attached to this staff agenda report, nominating Leonard Crespo of Total Western to a 1 year term and Shannon McGahee of World Energy to a 2 year term. With that, it's recommended that the City Council approve the appointment of Paramount Chamber of Commerce's nominees, Leonard Crespo and Shannon McGahee, to serve as private business sector reps on the Celico Workforce Development Board for terms ending June 2021 and June 2022, respectively. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions? If not, may I have a motion on the item?
So moved.
That was Councilmember Gibbon.
Yes.
This is Councilmember Aguayo, and I'll second.
Okay, the item has been moved by Councilmember Guillen, seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can I have a please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes, thank you. I want to apologize for the phone ringing a moment ago. That was mine, and ironically, it was the city of Paramount with a very important message. Okay, so item 3, award of contract to Delfio for audiovisual system for Progress Plaza.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Our management analyst, one of our management analysts, Mr. Danny Elizarios, is with us tonight, and he will present this item. Danny?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This item is a request to award a contract to Vitaflow for the renovation of Progress Park Plaza Auditorium Audiovisual System, also known as an AV system. The Progress Park Plaza is a marquee city facility used by many community groups, including occasional city council meetings, and the AV system being an important component of its use. Some of the important meetings held at Progress Park Plaza include AQMD, Metro, State of the City, parking committees, and general town hall meetings, just to name a few. Last renovated in May 2004, the Progress Park Plaza AV has been giving the city constant technical issues, resulting in costly repairs. Staff is recommending that Vitaflow provide the technical services to renovate the Progress Park Plaza AV system. With over 25 years of experience in AV system installations and repairs, Vitaflow has been the city's primary AV contractor for the last 2 years. If you recall, the city renovated the city council chambers nearly 3 years ago with a previous vendor. The renovation resulted in frustrating technical issues during live city council meetings. Vitaflow was a vendor that was brought on board to repair the city council chambers AV system. We have not experienced any major issues since then. The proposed Progress Park Plaza AV system project will take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to complete. Some new modern technology that will be added include an ADA-compliant sit-stand podium and an ADA-compliant assisted listening system. The proposed cost of the installation of the AV system will be $70,941.54, and it includes equipment, labor, and ongoing support. Paramount Municipal Code Section 18-29 allows this acquisition and exempts this item from competitive bidding due to the unique telecommunications equipment required in order to match existing equipment to facilitate effective maintenance and support. The project will be funded with public, educational, and governmental funds, also known as PEG funds, and is budgeted in the proposed FY21 budget. With Progress Park Plaza being the most used auditorium by community organizations, the AV system renovation will serve as a great addition to the city's heavily used resource. It is recommended that the City Council award the contract for the Progress Park Plaza Auditorium AV system renovation in the amount of $70,941.54 to Vitaflow and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions?
I'll move the item almost.
I second. Cuellar Stallings.
Been moved by Olmos, seconded by Cuellar Stallings. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, our next item is a public hearing on resolution number 20023, landscape maintenance assessment, district number 81-1, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Paramount confirming a diagram and assessment and providing rural assessment levies. So this is a public hearing. At this time, we will be hearing any protests or objections to the annual levy or assessments for landscape maintenance assessment number 81- for fiscal year 20 to 2021.
Madam Mayor, were you asking if there are any protests to this?
I'm going in the agenda I was presented, which says at this time I'm to do that.
Okay.
And then it has you up next. Would you like to change the order of that?
Actually, we were going to give you a brief report, but we could just go into the motion if you'd like.
No, let's have the report, and we'll just assume that there's been another line here,
Very good.
okay?
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director, Ms. Adrianna Figueroa. Adrianna?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, as you can see from this map, the Landscape Maintenance District 81-1 is located on Orange, north of Rosecrans, and includes Walthall Way and DeBee Drive. In accordance with the Landscape and Lighting Maintenance Act of 1972, the city engineer has prepared a report including the plans and specifications, estimate of cost, diagram of the Landscape Maintenance District, and an assessment of cost for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2020. The assessments in fiscal year 19-20 were $14,200, and the assessments for fiscal year 2021 will remain at the same level. This assessment will be spread among the 29 parcels. This item requires a few procedural steps. And the first step is to approve the city engineer's report, and secondly, approve a resolution declaring the City Council's intention to levy and collect the assessment for the landscape improvements and setting the public hearing date for today, June 16. All of this was done at the May 19th meeting, and tonight before you is the approval of resolution number 20023, which confirms the diagram and assessment and provides for the annual assessment levy on Landscape Maintenance District number 81-1. With that, at this time, it is recommended that the City Council read by title only and adopt resolution number 20023. That concludes my report, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adrianna. So I've already announced that this is a hearing for protest objections. Are there any on file at this time?
No, Madam Mayor, there's not, and I am to announce that a notice of this hearing has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972, being Division 15 of the Streets and Highway Code of the State of California, and that the affidavits of publication and posting are on file and have been on file in the city clerk's office. And to date, as I mentioned, we have not received any written protests.
Okay, I apologize if I'm taking this out of line, but it's not part of the piece here, but I have announced that there are objections. Would we not, because this is a public hearing, also ask if anyone wants to speak in favor?
Yes, you will ask to see if there's anybody wishing to speak in favor.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and interject that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
No, ma'am.
Anyone opposed?
There have been no
with
comments.
that- With that, we will take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who moved.
Oh, I'll move it, Gian.
Okay. Travis?
I'll go ahead and second. This is Councilmember Aguayo.
Okay, it's been moved by Guillen, seconded by Aguayo. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. And now we need a motion on the item.
This is Claire Stallings. I motion for the, to read by title only and adopt Resolution 20-023.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. Go ahead and second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Cuellar Stallings to adopt resolution number 20-023. That's been seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can I vote the call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes, thank you. With that, we'll move to approve the award of professional and auditing services.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, our Finance Director, Ms. Karina Lamlou, will handle the item. Karina?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. The item before you is the approval of professional auditing services. Our current contract with the existing auditor expires this year. Staff sent out requests for proposal in April, and we reached out to 5 auditing firms of neighboring cities. 4 firms responded and submitted a proposal. Staff evaluated the 4 proposals received based on 2 levels of review criteria. First is the mandatory elements. As our independent auditors, the firm has to be independent from the city and licensed to practice in California. Next, there should be no conflict of interest for the auditors to perform an independent audit and hence issue an objective opinion. The proposal they send should follow the request for proposal. And lastly, the firm should get a pass for their own audit, which is called an external quality control peer review. Based on the mandatory elements, we have narrowed it down to top 3 firms. They are I. Bailey, the Punt Group, White Nelson, Dill Evans. We further evaluate the top 3 firms with the qualification and criteria listed on this slide, including past experience and performance on government engagements, also the quality of personnel assigned to each audit, their proposed staffing level, their audit approach, their commitment to deadline, the staff retention, and lastly, the cost of the audit. All these 3 firms are high-quality organizations, but taking into consideration all factors, I. Bailey ranked the highest and was considered the best fit for the city at this time. First, in terms of experience, I. Bailey is head and shoulders above other firms. I. Bailey is a top 25 CPA firm in the nation. It has been in the government industry for over 70 years. It has worked with over 900 government clients. Currently has 275 professionals dedicated just to government sector. In addition, there are other qualifications that make I. Bailey better than the other 2 firms. A number of their partners are nationally recognized state and local government thought leaders who are speakers at national venues such as GFOA and CSMFO. One of the partners, his name is Eric Berman. He is the author of the entire governmental library. This library is the authoritative literature and reference for governmental generally accepted accounting principles, and also is a reference for best practices for governmental audits nationwide. All these thought leaders provide additional resources for the city and will be available to assist or consult as needed. I. Bailey also has a high staff retention rate when compared to other firms. This helps provide consistent service and helps minimize operational disruptions. I. Bailey actually presents a very unique set of advantages. I. Bailey acquired our previous audit firm, Valvin Day, in 2019. Not only I. Bailey is now our new auditors with national prominence, they retain institutional knowledge of the city through the prior audit firm, Valvin Day. Now, state law requires that we do audit partner rotation every 6 years. It is want to point out that iBailey not only will be doing audit partner rotation, they will do team rotations as another best practice, ensuring that the audit is conducted through a fresh pair of eyes. Since 2019, we have been very happy working with the new firm. Their staff has proven to be competent, thorough, responsive, and flexible. When it comes to professional technical services, cost is not the only factor for awarding a contract. Nonetheless, we did look at different cost proposals by the three firms. iBailey has provided a very competitive proposal when compared to the Pun Group and Dale Evans. The total cost for fiscal year 2020 is $36,000 and up to $39,000 in fiscal year 2022. The Pun Group has a similar proposal. They added state controller's report as part of their proposal, and for 2020, their cost proposal is $40,000 and up to $41,615 in fiscal year 2022. As for White Nelson Dale Evans, their proposal is $46,950 in fiscal year 2020 and up to $48,360 in fiscal year 2022. Based on the selection criteria, is recommending that the City Council approve iBailey as the city's independent auditors and authorize staff to enter into agreement for fiscal years ending June 2020, 2021, and 2022 with an option to renew 3 additional years. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Karina. Are there questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Councilmember Aguayo, the motion to approve the item.
This is Claire Stallings, I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Aguayo, seconded by Claire Stallings. May we have a roll call?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, with that, we'll move into the budget report.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council members, thank you very much. As I mentioned back on June the 2nd, this has been probably one of the most challenging budgets that preparation times that I've ever been through in my 27 years with the city of Paramount. And it's mainly because of COVID-19. And it really forced us to do more with our existing year's budget, FY20, than for FY21. And I'll explain that in a little bit here. When we go into a budget process, we always look at how we can add things, or in times of a need, maybe curtail things back. And our focus has always been on the upcoming year. And that certainly has been the case with with the budget that you're about to hear about. However, there was a serious focus on the current year. And again, that was due to COVID. When the epidemic became a reality, our budget was almost 75% spent, which means that it was virtually impossible for us to pivot and change the course of direction and close down everything and save the roughly $2 million that we are going to be short of this current year. So that's what we were up against in trying to develop this budget, is to see how to rescue, if you will, this current year's budget before we look to the future for FY21. Thankfully, though, at this time, we look to be in better shape for FY21 than we do for FY20. And there's a few things for why that is. Number one is our conservative spending habits. After the drastic post-recession cuts that we made in 2012, we never really fattened up. We always stayed lean. And that has definitely helped us as we hit this huge bump in the road. The second thing that we did was over the years we produced a healthy rainy day fund. So when times were good and we had budget surpluses, our past council, they dutifully placed these excess funds in reserves, and that's again our rainy day fund. And our general fund reserve account is now above $12 million. The third thing that is seriously helping us out with this is Measure Y. We cannot overlook that. And as we presented during the public information campaign, the 3/4 cent sales tax was predicted to bring in between $4 to $5 million per year in new general fund tax revenue. So this is actually predicted to offset the loss of general fund and other categories. So at this point in time, as I said, FY21 looks to be a little bit better than FY20 does, or I should say a lot better. And again, for those reasons, and also because we have kept our expenses at status quo, because there are still a lot of unknowns as we venture into a post-COVID world. And we're not out of that yet, so there is a lot of unknowns. However, we need to push forward and adopt a budget. So that's what we are asking for you tonight. The process that we are going to go through tonight, it's quite a long presentation. I'm estimating it to be close to about an hour's time just on the presentation part of it. Each department, first off, Karina will give an introduction of the budget similar to what she gave on June the 2nd. And then each department head is here with us tonight and we'll go over each of their departments. And that's very important, I think, because they need to show what areas of the city, what areas of the municipal government they manage and what their scope of responsibility is. At any time, Mayor, if you'd like to take a pause to take a break, that is something that we've customarily done in the past. So definitely that is something that we're used to if you want to pause at any time. So with that, I will turn it over first off to our finance director, Karina Lamlou, who will give us the overall overview of things. And then, as I said, we'll turn it over to each of the department heads. Karina?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, I am very pleased to present to you the fiscal year 21 budget. Since John has given you a pretty background introduction already, I'm going to go into my slides. 2 weeks ago, we introduced the budget to you in a summarized format. The budget process actually began in March, April, with multiple reviews between departments and city manager. As we traditionally do, we'll review this at greater detail tonight, and it is our goal to adopt the budget tonight so we have appropriation ready before our fiscal year begins in July. I want to point out that we don't stop here. Not that we adopt a budget and we stop. We continue to look at actual data and fine-tune our budgets. Traditionally, we have always fine-tuned the budget at mid-year and final. Because of the uncertainty, I want to point out that we may do an earlier budget review in a few months, but we will keep you all posted. Having a budget is very critical in our operations. The budget is certainly subject to the audits, as our auditors review variances to make sure that what we do are consistent with the council's intent in the budgets. Any variance will need to be disclosed, audited, and also disclosed in the financial reports. Now, typically, I would tell you that we have pretty good track record when it comes to actuals and budgets. We are very close. However, for fiscal year 21, I cannot say that. So I just want to point that out. With that said, we're really doing a budget in the midst of economic shutdown during a global pandemic raises a great deal of uncertainty. It is impossible really to anticipate the depth of the economic shutdown caused by the pandemic. So this is really a preliminary budget plan using a very conservative approach. We hope to get back to you in a few months as we close the book for current year. We may have a better idea and we will come to you with more realistic numbers. Since the stay-at-home order in effect, we've been revising our revenue number quite a few times. As you can imagine, the shutdown really have a huge impact on revenues. So we've been assessing the impacts seriously in the past few months. First is our sales tax. we have worked very closely with our industry expert, HDL company, to estimate the impact of the reduction in sales tax in our community, also in the state. Statewide, the decrease is going to be estimated as negative 7.5% for first quarter and negative 36% for second quarter. In addition to the expected drop in sales tax because of the economic shutdown, the state implemented a couple programs to help businesses. You may have heard it on the news that there are sales tax deferral and installment programs. What the programs really provide is simply allow the businesses to delay making sales tax payment or to allow them to make installments in 12 months. What that means is sales tax will not be submitted to the state and therefore not coming to the city. It is a little too soon to get a handle on it. So in the budget, it included a very conservative approach, assuming those who qualify would take the deferral and installment programs in the current year, and a portion will be paid back to the city next fiscal year. Overall, sales tax is expected to decrease by $1.15 million in the current year, and $549,000 decrease next year when we compare to fiscal year 18-19. The reason we are comparing to fiscal year 18-19 is because there's a full year, we have full sales tax that come to the city. When we compare next year with current year, because of the decrease, a sudden decrease, it's hard to really look at the magnitude of the decrease. So that's why we pick 18-19 as a benchmark. The negative impact to revenues is pretty widespread. There are ripple effects in many other categories, including the utility users tax. As account holders are now allowed to postpone making payments, this will impact utility users tax as well. We expect a drop of 14% or close to $536,000 when compared to fiscal year 18-19. On licensing revenues, as many businesses are closed during the Saver-at-Home order, we're seeing the slowdown of license renewals. A big drop in business license was also related to the closure of swap meet. So the total decrease here is about $589,000. In addition, animal license is expected to decrease as well. Next is real property transfer tax. Because of the slowdown, properties are not sold as much, and we anticipate a drop in revenues there. Same for fee-based programs. We're expecting development to slow down, and same as permits. Also, as facilities are closed and we are unable to provide classes or excursions or other programs, we're budgeting a decrease in recreation programs. In facility rental, we're also expecting a decrease as well. And last couple months, we've been issuing as many refunds as possible related to various cancellations. As you're well aware, residents are now staying home in the last couple months, and no parking or administration sites really have been issued, so we appropriated a decrease in the revenues as well. General fund is not alone. Transportation revenues are tied to sales tax, and therefore we expect lower grant revenues in the upcoming year. Also, as fuel consumption is lower, it will also impact gas tax revenues. Gas tax, we use it to fund our road division. We are also watching very closely on the state's deficits. The last I heard, their deficit is in the magnitude of $54 billion. Initially, MVLF was on the chopping block, but thanks to legislative protection, we were told that this revenue stream is most likely will be safe. However, there were talks about funding cut to education. What will impact us will be our ACES after school funding. Overall, in the current year, we anticipate an overall general fund decrease of $2.26 million, and however, we're expecting an increase of $1.25 million next year. Why is it an increase next year? The answer is Measure Y. As you know, Measure Y overwhelmingly passed by the voters in March. This will bring in additional $4.2 million as the new sales tax rate will be operative on July 1st. The additional revenue stream could not have come more timely. It will just help us offset the loss of overall general fund revenues. So what have we done so far to mitigate the fiscal positions? So we have a soft freeze on recruitments, also on non-essential spending. We negotiated flat contract renewals for the most part. CPI this last year was at 3.36%. Normally, we may consider a cost of living increase for some of our revenues, some of the licenses. However, at this time, we're not recommending any of that. That includes business license, animal license, water rate, swap meets, or rent. Next, we'll look into our revenues in more detail. This is a chart showing the history of city revenues, all revenues combined. For next year, we are budgeting close to $53 million. And among the $53 million, general fund is at $29 million in fiscal year 21 in light blue. As you can see, when we compare current year to the next, we are budgeting an increase in the general fund about $3.5 million to a total of $29 million. The increase was related to Measure Y. On a restricted category, we budgeted about $23.7 million in fiscal year 21, about $5 million increase when comparing next year to this year's. What make up the $5 million are from various grants, including $3.3 million grant for a bike trail,
Karina?
Yes.
May I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yes.
Somebody needs to put their mic on mute. We're getting a lot of shuffling of papers, talking background noise. So just check your mics, make sure that they're on mute during the presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Please continue, Karina.
Sure. On the restricted fund category, we budgeted about $23.7 million in fiscal year 21, about $5 million increase when comparing next year to this year. What make up the $5 million are from various grants, including $3.3 million grants for a bike trail, $700,000 for Measure A for parks and open space, $700,000 SPTL grants for a street project, and $500,000 Measure W revenue postponed from current year to fiscal year 21. I do want to point out there is a $6.7 million source that is not included in the revenue here because it's a loan that we secured through the iBank last year for the construction of the new water well. It is not classified as revenue, so as you can see, it's not here, but I want to point out when you see the revenues, we do have a funding source for the expenditure. Earlier, you see the total city revenues. Here is a history of just general fund revenues. For fiscal year 21, we're budgeting a total of $29 million. Out of the $29 million, $7.9 million in red represents sales tax. In green, which is $4.2 million, is the new revenue source from Measure Y. The rest of the revenue is in blue, total close to $17 million. That represents MVLF, property tax, licensing, permits, and other revenues in the general fund. Once again, you see a drop in a blue bar in fiscal year 20 for the sales tax in red, and the drop is all related to COVID-19. And we are hoping sales tax in fiscal year 21 will go up a little bit to $7.9 million. Back on the transaction tax, Measure Y, it was passed by the voters on March 3rd, and it will provide $4.2 million new funding to offset the loss of general fund next year. Back in 2015, if you recall, Measure P was passed by the voters overwhelmingly as well. Since 2015, we do see an increase in utility users tax, particularly in fiscal year 16. Since then, a lot of exemption has turned in, legislation changed, so we see a drop in utility users tax. In fiscal year 20 and 21, we're anticipating further drop because of COVID-19. We're budgeting approximately $3.2 million this year and next year. Utility users tax is a significant source of income still at $3.2 million. It continues to help us pay for essential services. It helps us when, especially a few years back when we lost redevelopment, $5 to $6 million a year. It continues to help us balance the volatility of sales tax. Annually, we do perform utility users tax analysis, making sure that the providers are submitting the correct percentage. As I mentioned earlier, usually we may consider a cost of living adjustment for different fees, different licenses, consumer price index at 3.36%, but at this time we are not recommending any increase for business license, swap meet, animal license, water rates, or development fees. Next, we'll cover expenditures. The total citywide expenditures is budgeted about $64 million next year. You can see that the operation is total about $45.7 million, while capital improvement projects in red total about $18.7 million. In our operation back on current year and fiscal year 20, that was our first structural deficit as expenditures outpaced revenues. Operational cost increase included contract rate increases from the sheriff, landscape maintenance, road maintenance, animal license, crossing guards, minimum wage, etc. Also, we have increased salaries and benefits at that time. And in fiscal year 21, however, I want to say that other than a few contract increases, we pretty much hold the line in our operations. And we also freezing 3 full-time positions. As for capital improvements, that's in red color, we're budgeting over $18 million. About $7 million is for the construction of a new water well. Also included are grant-funded projects such as street improvements, bike trail, parking facility improvements, including Paramount Pool. Next is our operating budgets in a pie chart among operating departments. We have excluded water utility from here so we can see clearly from our operations how much we allocated per department. Year after year, you can see that our focus really is public safety. Among $36 million operating budgets, public safety holds 35% total. And this reflects our long-standing priorities that we set for the community as it has concluded in our professional surveys both in 2015 and 2019. Next is our capital improvement projects. As always, we have ambitious capital improvement programs. We are projecting more than $18 million for projects in fiscal year 21. Of that, $7 million for water, over $10 million for streets, and over $1 million for parks, and about $171,000 for other projects. The bulk of the $7 million is related to the construction of a new well. As for streets, a number of projects were funded by various grants. And for parks, we were successful in getting a grant as well for park projects. More detail will be followed when our Public Works Director, Adrianna Figueroa, presents the Public Works and Capital Improvement projects. With that, that concludes the financial aspect of the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions? Okay.
Mayor Lemon, I'm sorry, Mayor Lemon, this is Vice Mayor Olmos. I just have a quick statement or maybe just a confirmation. For Karina, for the Measure Y funds, they're in the general fund, correct?
Yes, it is.
So when we talk about increasing our policing and community, is it pulled from the general fund?
Yes, most of them, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? If
Okay,
not,
let's move on to community promotion.
all right. David will be presenting community promotion.
Thank you, Karina. Mayor and City Council, good evening. This begins on page 35 of your budget document. This is our division that supports groups that provide support services in our community and provides for community events and services. So there is $410,200 budgeted in this division to support its various programming. So we do have in here funding for 6 large events. So we need to discuss, we did budget the full amount that we would normally spend on these events. Because we are still dealing with COVID-19 related restrictions and shutdowns, we're not sure actually how these events might actually fare. So we're hearing generally is that the state may not allow large scale events to happen in the remainder part of this calendar year. So any events that would be affected by that, we are looking at new ways that we can present those events still to our community in some manner, shape, or form that they can participate, but they will be most likely very different than what we're typically used to seeing, at least in this year, and then we'll hopefully go back to normal. So it was pointed out, so those pictures that you see on the right-hand side are not what you'll be able to see this year during COVID restrictions. They will be more scaled back and all have social distancing as required. We do still have in our community promotion budget recognition programs for our Youth Sports Hall of Fame, education, and military. I would like to point out that our Youth Hall of Fame picture of the athlete of the year and recognizing all the other athletes of the year will be going up soon in the horchateria in our downtown. And the top 25 students that get displayed on Alondra Boulevard, those should be going up in early July. So funding for this division also covers the city's marketing programs and cleanup events. Those are all still budgeted. Our youth leagues are funded in here along with the various 12 community organizations that provide services to our residents. So our youth leagues. So we do need to discuss that we have mentioned and we have discussed with our youth leagues that that the direct funding for them is going to be reduced. That is coming. They are aware of that. We have not been able to meet with them in person because of the COVID restrictions, and we are waiting for those restrictions to be released. But we will sit down then with them and provide any clarification as directed by council previously to make sure they understand that funding is not actually being lost, but it is just being diverted then to a youth scholarship fund that their participants will be able to access. So to walk through this, I do want to point out, so on the FY19 actuals, there's an asterisk there on that $20,000 for PYSO. That does include, it's an FY18 and 19 allocation that they were maxed out on. It all showed up in the FY19 actuals, but it's actually for two different fiscal years. So I apologize for that. The Youth League. So just for a little background, they are eligible up to $10,000 per year based upon their funding formula, which is $55 per eligible player. So not all of them reach that full $10,000, but we do budget it that way. So we did budget usually for three groups, baseball, softball, and soccer. So normally we would have a budget of $30,000 for those three funded youth leagues. FY20 would be their last full season of receiving their maximum eligibility of $10,000. FY21 would be the first year in which they would receive that reduction, which would go down to a maximum of $5,000. However, FY20, as we all know, we're sitting in, is COVID hit and everything got shut down. They actually lost their spring season. They were not able to play at all. Those leagues are all looking now to play their lost spring season this fall. So what we're looking at in FY21 is we thought it appropriate that they would be still made whole and be eligible for their full $10,000 of funding for their lost season in FY20. And then also make them eligible for their normal $5,000 that they'd be eligible typically or proposed for FY21. So they're going to essentially try to run two seasons, two major seasons, two recreation seasons, one in the fall to capture the lost spring, and then a new one in spring of 21. So we've put into the budget $15,000 that they're eligible for those two seasons. The difference that we would normally have budget, again, was $30,000. We have now placed $15,000 then in the Youth Scholarship Fund. So this would be the first year also in which applicants would be able to apply to receive some reduction of their fees related to playing in those sports. These are the groups that do receive funding through the city for various services they provide to our community and residents. And then these are also the groups that receive funding for a special event that they do. The 999 Kids Foundation does a drive for child abuse. Latina Arts is one that took over for TAG and does the Paramount Student Art Show. Topeka Sister Cities does the two events, Dia de los Niños and Dia de los Muertos, and Friends of the Library does the Paramount Library Open House. Whoops, went too fast. So this is a quick layout of all the community funding organizations and there's the groups that get special event funding. You'll see that on here there are no changes and there are no new groups that requested funding. And then lastly, in community promotion, we have all these other, again, services that we provide. There isn't, again, not a lot of change here. You will notice that under community promotion events, there is a $10,000 increase from FY20 final to FY21 proposed. That is due to, we were actually able to make when COVID hit, we were able to actually cancel the eco-friendly fair and effectively save the $10,000 budget for that event. That's why FY20 is down by $10,000. That concludes the presentation on community promotion. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Do we have any more budget presentation items?
Yes, moving.
John?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Now we're going to hit each of the departments.
Okay.
And so that's me again. So let me go through, this is our community services and recreation budget. It does begin on page 93 of your budget document. This department's total budget is a little bit over $5 million, of which a little over half of that actually comes from grants. So our after-school grant is about $2.1 million, and we do have our Proposition A transit grant in there for nearly $600,000. We do actually still, in our FY21 budget, show savings for 2 full-time positions that are frozen. One is from FY20 and one is currently in FY21 proposed budget. And then we do have some miscellaneous savings still from our transit program changes that we made 2 years ago. So we, again, as I mentioned prior, in the community promotion budget, there are special events that show up in the recreation budget. These are also going to be affected by any restrictions that we still see in this calendar year for related to COVID. But they are fully budgeted in case the COVID restrictions are released and we're able to conduct them as we normally would. But again, we still are planning to find ways to conduct these events in a different format. As an example, summer concerts, this is something that we're looking into. We possibly could hold them as drive-in concerts at our local drive-in theater. And so we're just looking for various ways that we can still provide these services to our community. The department provides supervision and staffing for all these city events, whether they're budgeted in community promotion or in recreation. We are still looking at, we would hold 2 market events. One are our Friday night markets and one would be the farmer's market. Our farmer's market actually recently just came back. They've held 2, that's the weekly event over at Progress Park, and they've held 2 events and they've done fairly well. We're hoping, again, the Friday night market will come back probably next calendar year. We do obviously supervise the youth leagues and our Los Cerritos YMCA contract to operate the pool and after-school care at Mariposa. We operate and supervise the transit programs that we call Paramount in Motion, and then we obviously work with all the nonprofit groups and other events that are held in the city to make sure they go off okay. For our summer programming, again, our summer is going to be vastly different because of COVID restrictions. We will be opening the pool. We're working with the YMCA currently. As you know, the county recently allowed municipal pools to reopen. So we are working with the YMCA to make sure that we are following all county-related requirements to reopen a pool. We are looking at the end of June to reopen for swim lessons and early July to reopen for rec swim. Again, if you see that picture down below of people using the pool, it's not going to look like that. There are vast restrictions that we have to follow to make sure there's social distancing in the water. And so it's going to be a different summer. So we are generally going to be operating at maximum amount would be half the normal capacity. So anywhere between 150 and 200 participants be allowed in the pool. Normally our capacity is 400. Our futsal courts will reopen once the county allows those facilities to reopen. Our day camp will start next week. We're operating under the requirements that the county imposed for running day camps. We have then severely reduced the number of applicants that we could take from our normal 100, and now we're only operating with 24 because of the facility we're using. We have to keep all campers in groups of 12 or less, and they have to be completely separate from the other campers. Our concerts in the park, as I mentioned, we'll be looking for alternate ways to provide that service. Our movie nights at the community center will restart once the community centers around the state are allowed to reopen. And our splash pad actually does not fall under a municipal pool. It is actually being treated as a playground. So none of the splash pads will be able to reopen until the county allows playgrounds to reopen. Sports programming, we have obviously the youth sports that the YMCA provides with their basketball. They were going to operate a futsal program this spring, but again, as we all know, that all changed. So we are still planning to have them operate a futsal league next spring. Friday Night Lights football will also happen. That's our flag football program. You already know about our youth leagues. They'll be functioning hopefully soon. And adult sports, we are looking again to offer a slow pitch softball in the spring, along with an adult futsal league in the spring. The other programming, obviously, the department operates. All of them are going to be affected by COVID restrictions. Our facilities are currently closed for public use. Programs like Mommy and Me are also closed until such time that the county reopens them. Our PEP Learning Center will reopen once school starts. But again, like the school district, it will be vastly reduced in terms of the number of students that we can take for social distancing requirements, but it will reopen when the schools reopen. Our STAR After School program is the same. Once the schools return to service, we will as well. But again, they will look vastly different this year. Our senior programs are still on hiatus. We cannot run our normal programs, but as you're well aware, we are obviously working as best we can to continue to provide them food, some entertainment, and some joy, because obviously this has been very difficult on our seniors. Our youth commission will come back once the schools return, and our instructional classes are also on hold until such time our community centers can reopen. And even our parent motion, our transit programs are affected by social distancing standards. Whoops. Some of the various upgrades that we're proposed in our budget. So because the council upgraded and improved our park codes, we actually need to make some changes to our park signage, which has been overdue for many, many years. So the symbol you see on the right, that's an example of what our new park signs will look like. They're following the design standard that you see on our city streets, their entry monuments. So they'll be very similar, just a different color. They'll be green because they're on parks. We are also looking to budget for concrete picnic tables and trash cans. So all our parks have, the old metal, vinyl coated metal picnic tables and trash cans. We are slowly each year trying to purchase additional concrete tables and trash cans. They are actually nicer, they do last longer, and they're a little more destruction proof. Also, because of the park codes, we're no longer going to be allowing people to bring their personal barbecues onto the park. So we have some barbecues budgeted to make sure that we have adequate number of barbecues to replace those that are missing or are damaged on the parks. And then finally, for these park upgrades, we also are budgeting money for an EOC shelter supply items, cots, blankets, things of that nature, and then a storage bin that will go at Paramount Park to keep them safe. And then in terms of facility upgrades, just a few minor things. Some of it is half of it is coming from non-restricted funds. But we're replacing at Paramount Park Pool the trash cans and floor mats. So we renovated this pool 14 years ago, and that's the same trash cans and floor mats. So they are in a little bit of bad condition and need to be replaced. These AED systems that you see here, we've done this over now a couple years, and this will be the final number of AED systems for our facilities to get us in compliance with having an AED system at all public facilities. And then laptops. We're getting 2 laptops, one for Plaza and one for Clearwater. And again, this will assist us with providing AV services at those sites that are heavily used for community events. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And after that, I'll hand it off to Public Safety Director Adrianna Lopez.
Mayor, we can pause here if you want, if there's any questions on the recreation budget that we just covered.
Exactly. Anybody have any questions? Okay, let's move on.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. As mentioned, I will be highlighting the budget for public safety. And my budget starts on page 79. I'll start by mentioning that public safety has 5 separate divisions. We have administration, sworn, non-sworn, code enforcement, and support services. Public safety does continue to have the largest operating department with a budget of $13 million, which is included in all 5 divisions. I'll start with the highlights in the sworn department. As mentioned, the sworn department is $9 million, and that includes deputy sheriffs. Next year, fiscal year 21, we're going to see an increase of 5.57, and that would be to the line item that would include deputies, and mostly that's going to be our patrol deputies. And then we also have our sergeant services, and we're going to see an increase of 5.83%. Now, just to mention that the rate increases are established by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, and we cannot control those increases. In regards to the liability trust fund, we will continue to have an 11% contribution to each item that has a liability trust fund attached to it. We were anticipating an increase of 0.5%, but with the assistance of the California Contract Cities Association, this will remain at 11%, and we will not see an increase in this. Continuing with the sworn division, I'm going to highlight some of the areas here. We do have deputy sheriff services, and that usually includes, like I mentioned, our patrol deputies, and that is part of our daily deployment. We also have 5 SAO deputies, and we refer to them as special assignment officers. We continue to have a school resource officer as part of our budget. We pay for 50% for one position or one body. In addition, we continue to have a detective specialist, and that is a retired detective who was assigned to Paramount for over a decade. This year, we had to add a sergeant, or what we refer to as a supplemental sergeant. And this was because at the direction of the Board of Supervisors, the Sheriff's Department had to reassign unfunded administrative positions. So basically what that means is that the station lieutenant we typically were assigned was moved somewhere else, and we were asked if we wanted to maintain some type of sergeant or supervision. So we decided to add the sergeant, supplemental sergeant, and that would be Sergeant Fitzgerald. In addition, we continue to have dedicated overtime hours to address any kind of trends, including crime trends or traffic trends, and I'll go into some of our traffic services in the next slide. Okay, as we know, traffic continues to be an issue for the city of Paramount, and it continues to be a priority to our law enforcement personnel as well as public safety. Years ago, what we did, instead of having a dedicated position, we transitioned to having dedicated enforcement hours. What that provided was greater flexibility. And by that I mean, let's say, for example, if we have a dedicated position, they have to work 80 hours, and they have to have a set schedule. By having hours, we can pick our schedule. Somebody can come in and work 4 hours, and then in the morning, and then somebody else could work another 4 hours in the evening. In addition, we can have very targeted, specific enforcement. And this also, we realized that it was more cost effective. Now, I want to make sure that we understand that with these traffic enforcement hours, the deputies are concentrating on the common violations. So let's say, for example, speeding, when somebody's not stopping at a stop sign, traffic enforcement, general traffic enforcement around the schools. So we did this several years ago as well. Staying on the actual traffic hours, we have units that are deployed on a daily basis, and they are funded by the general fund as well as grants. This fiscal year, we had over almost close to 2,000 hours that were worked by the mostly motorcycle deputies. And this equaled almost slightly under 4,000 citations. I do want to point out that because of COVID, some of the hours were less than normal, so that also affected the number of citations that were issued. Now, I believe John mentioned this earlier. We are happy to report that the Public Safety Department applied and was awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice. This grant is specifically to address street racing. So the entire grant must be used for this purpose. So what we're proposing to do is create a task force that will conduct 15 operations based on the intel that they gather either from social media or just the information that we're able to gather with calls for service, and try to determine what date and when these takeovers are occurring. As we see it, street racing is more of a organized crime that's being committed instead of the common violations that are committed by your average driver. We continue to have an agreement with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for a dedicated deputy district attorney, and I believe most of you guys have met her. That would be Deputy District Attorney Kelly Tapman. We do have a shared agreement with the City of Bellflower for this item. We are seeing a small increase of 4.41% for this contract. Now going on to non-sworn, the non-sworn division. The biggest item in the non-sworn division is our crossing guard services. We have slightly over 13,000 hours of crossing guard services at 21 designated sites with 19 dedicated, well, no, I'm sorry, I believe that's wrong. So it would be 19 sites with 21 dedicated crossing guard services, because we have 2 sites that have 2 crossing guard services. That contract, we're seeing an increase of 4.95 hours for the upcoming fiscal year. And now going into code enforcement. Code enforcement division, as mentioned earlier, we are having a full-time position that will be frozen for the upcoming fiscal year. And we also had a reclassification of this, a regular full-time position to a senior code enforcement position. Although this actually occurred in the current fiscal year, the next fiscal year will be the first time that we have this position for an entire fiscal year. Going on to support services, we continue to have the contract with SIACA, and with their services, we're anticipating an increase of slightly under 5%. And we will also be conducting a delinquent canvass, and our contract also includes administrative costs as well as licensing and supply services. As always, we are committed to continuing with our community-oriented policing programs, which include the Neighborhood Watch, as well as the Good Neighbor program. During this COVID period, we have not been able to host Neighborhood Watch meetings. However, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do that soon, as well as our Good Neighbor program. It is on the schedule to take place in October, but we'll see how things go with the large gatherings and the restrictions. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Adrianna, this is Councilman Cuellar Stallings.
Yes, Councilwoman.
What site has the 2 crossing guards? What school site?
Okay, that would be on Downey and Rosecrans and Downey and Paramount.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we have more presentations, Mr. Moreno?
Yes, ma'am. Our next one will be
Next is finance and municipal supports budget, and is on page 55 of the budget document. Total budget for the department in fiscal year 21 is approximately $4 million. Approximately $1.5 million belongs to administration, $152,000 belongs to customer service, $456,000 for water billing, and approximately $2 million for municipal support. So what do we do in finance? We handle all the accounting functions. Annually, we issue about 7,500 accounts payable checks in-house, 8,000 payroll checks in-house. We do accounts receivables as well in-house and take care of the treasury function. In addition to the regular audits, we also handle various audits from the state, from the county, from MTA. We also issue financial statements, as you'll see our award later on in the presentation. Our division of finance is also customer service. We are the face of the city. We serve our residents, and we work with other departments and agencies on business licensing, yard sale permits, and citywide mail. And we are also responsible for citywide water bills. It's all coming from customer service department. I mentioned about various audits that we do. I also want to point out that this is not required by law or required by the National Government Finance Officer Association, but we voluntarily engage our auditors to look into our policies, do something called agree upon procedures, and it's been 3 years now. And what they do is, in addition to the regular financial audit, they pick an area and focus on the internal control, focus on detail every single signatures that we have, and make sure that in specific areas we're following all the policy and procedures, and we have good internal control. And over the last 3 decades, we've been getting the GFOA Award for Excellent Financial Reporting. This is the highest level of award you can ever got for financial reporting in government sector, and we're very pleased to let you know that we have not received news on fiscal year 19. I think because of COVID-19, things are getting a little behind, but we surely hope that the award tradition will continue. As for municipal support, it's also part of finance. This is a centralized division where we serve citywide equipment and services, and also include insurance in this division. Insurance include general liability insurance, property insurance, earthquake insurance, etc. This division also covers all telephones, utilities, IT technology, software, and licenses. In terms of insurance, we are part of the California Joint Power Authority. There is an increase of general liability insurance. Total is $588,000, and the increase for fiscal year 21 is approximately $58,850. That concludes finance presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, our next presenter.
The next presenter is our Assistant City Manager, Andrew Valpondo, and he will present administrative services and human resources.
Thank you, Karina. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'll be presenting to you the administrative services budget. That budget starts on page 47 of your budget book. The administrative services department includes both human resources and management services. Specifically, human resources is responsible for our largest asset being our city employees. HR oversees personnel services, risk management, and new to the city is labor relations. Our management services area covers information technology, or IT, economic development, contract management, special projects, legislative analysis, and other projects as assigned. Our total budget is $1,632,000. Some highlights in the fiscal year 21 budget for human resources include a couple of things. For one, we're going to be proposing, or we are proposing, a no cost of living adjustment increase, and this is directly in response to some of the limitations we've experienced in light of COVID, or in response to COVID. And also, we are not going forward with any changes to employee benefits at this time. Again, these are different areas to mitigate the impacts of COVID to see how we can bridge the gap into fiscal year 21. Also, for our part-time employees, we are making a few adjustments to our part-time positions to comply with California minimum wage law, and this is just something that we've done over the last couple of years when the law was passed, and we'll continue to do for the next couple of years so that we do not have one large impact in one year. Moreover, as Karina mentioned early on in our presentation tonight, we are moving forward with what we're considering a soft freeze of certain positions. Next slide, please. Some other important notes I should make regarding human resources for our fiscal year 21 budget is we did see a sharp uptick in the last few months since COVID of unemployment claims. Right now, they're hovering at about 53. I think the important thing to note here is that typically most of the claims against the city are denied because we don't have many involuntary separations. A lot of the claims we've received in the last couple of months were related directly to COVID, and a lot of these claims are by former employees who left on their own will voluntarily. Ordinarily, the state would deny these claims because volunteer separations are typically denied. However, given COVID and the current state of affairs, we have yet to see what the state is going to decide on those unemployment claims. So we just don't know at this time what the fiscal impact is going to be exactly. On average, though, we estimate that the weekly cost per employee, if approved by the state, would be between $100 and $200 per employee per week. Another important thing to note is our ongoing labor negotiations with the Teamsters for about 22 members in our Public Works Department. These are still ongoing. There was about a 3-month layoff due to COVID, so we are picking those back up soon, those negotiations, and we are expected to be completed in FY21. We also provide legal services, and we work with contract legal counsel for these labor negotiations, as well as other personnel consultation services. We're really excited about the purchase of a human resources information management system. This is a web-based HR management tool that would significantly improve our management of personnel. It would streamline recruitments and evaluations, as well as offer online timesheets and online reporting. This is clearly a better user face for not only the employees, but applicants. And this is kind of the first face of the city of Paramount for applicants interested in working with the city. Moving on, I want to cover lastly just some items in our information technology division. I think one of the keystone projects we're really excited for in FY21 is looking into an upgrade of our overall phone system. Our current phone system is pretty antiquated, and you'll hear a little bit about this later on in our capital improvement projects presentation by Adrianna Figueroa. But we're really excited about this. Our phone system is well over 30 years old, and we're already experiencing some serious technical difficulties with it. Currently, we hired a consultant just to give us an assessment of what our infrastructure needs are to update our phone system to current technology. As you can imagine, our current system set up on a 30-year-old infrastructure, and so we can't just fast forward 30 years. So we'll need a consultant to tell us at least what it is that we'll need and what new systems are out there, so that we make sure to get not only the best system or a sufficient system, but also something that is reasonable and will last us for quite some time. We'll also be replacing, as usual, our critical computer devices that have reached the end of their life. And this is important, obviously, from a business aspect. And lastly, something that's not listed on here is, as you heard just earlier tonight, we will be moving forward with the upgrade of our audio-video system at Progress Plaza Auditorium. We are using restricted funds for these. These restricted funds are what we call Public Education and Government Funds, or otherwise PEG funds. What PEG funds are, they're revenue received by cable providers in our city. The city has used it for capital upgrades in the past for media broadcasting purposes. Since we do hold council meetings and public meetings in the Progress Park Auditorium, we are able to use these funds. That said, We mistakenly left this AV upgrade out of this proposed budget. However, we do have available PEG funds. So we do intend to use them, and since the PEG funds are restricted funds, they do not impact our general fund. So we will make this adjustment this evening on the approved budget. And again, just to reiterate, since they are restricted funds, PEG funds, it will not have an impact on our surplus given that caveat. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding administrative services before I pass it on to Mr. John Carver of our planning department. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I will be going over the planning department budget, and this begins on page 67 of the budget document. Budget highlights for the planning department include the preparation of the Clearwater East specific plan amendment. For this amendment, we are working on a request for proposal to send out to consultants. The consultant for the North Paramount Boulevard specific plan has been selected, and documents for the contract will be signed in the near future. We will also begin work on design guidelines for the city's downtown area. Another big project for FY21 is the housing element update. The funding for this project is from a state local early action planning grant. The housing element will detail how the city will meet the upcoming regional housing needs allocation number. In the area of current planning, the department will review and process 150 projects, including 30 conditional use permits. Projects will include 2 assisted senior living developments, one at the corner of Paramount Boulevard and 70th Street, and the other located to the north of that site at the site of the Methodist Church. Looking at other potential private developments, these include the redevelopment of the Lindsay Lumber property, the construction of a digital billboard adjacent to the 710 freeway, and a 10-unit single-family housing project at the southwest corner of Alondra Boulevard and Hunsaker Avenue. In addition to the Clearwater East and North Paramount Boulevard specific plans, projects will include the city's regional housing needs allocation number and a downtown specific plan, as I mentioned previously, and these are funded with a permanent local housing allocation grant from the state of California. Moving on to building and safety. So far this year, building and safety has processed 124 sets of plans by our outside consultant. There have been 405 permits that have been issued to date this fiscal year. And as of this month, there have been 9,376 inspections that have been made. In the planning department, we also have the commercial rehabilitation program, and this gives grants to property owners to perform exterior improvements. The city provides a grant in the amount of 80% of the project cost, with the owner responsible for 20% of the cost. We have 3 commercial rehab projects proposed for this fiscal year. The first is shown in this slide, which is the Lee building on Paramount Boulevard, and this is just south of Domino's Pizza. And you can see the existing conditions on the left and what we're proposing on the right. A second commercial rehabilitation project is the M&M Car Wash located on North Paramount Boulevard. The car wash is adjacent to a newly completed commercial rehab project, and this is just to the south of the car wash, and we want to continue the momentum of rehabilitation in this area of the city. And you can see the existing conditions of the car wash on the left and what's proposed on the right. And for a third project, we are targeting the 5-Star Market on Downey Avenue, north of Rosecrans. And finally, in planning, we have the Home Improvement Program. We do 4 projects each year. The program focuses on exterior improvements for owner-occupied single-family residential homes. The project pictured above is on Chester Street, and in this project we did a new roof, new stucco, new windows, and landscaping. For A senior homeowner, the city provides a grant of 90%, while the property owner is responsible for 10% of the cost. For low-income homeowners, the city gives a grant in the amount of 80% of the improvement costs, with the homeowner providing 20% of the project costs. And here's another project that we completed this fiscal year, and this is on Walnut, and in this project we did a new roof and painted the exterior of the home. And that concludes my part of the budget presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if not, I'll turn it over to Public Works Director Adrianna Figueroa.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I will be presenting the Public Works budget for fiscal year 21, and that begins on page 117 of your proposed budget document. As has been indicated previously, this upcoming fiscal year includes similar current service levels as in fiscal year 20. However, we reached out to our current contractors and asked that they maintain the line and forego the CPI increases schedule for fiscal year 21 based on their contracts, and they agreed. And those are First Vehicle for our fleet maintenance, Brightview for our landscape maintenance, West Coast Arborist, who handles our tree trimming contract, and Golden Touch for our janitorial services. I will go into some key elements that are included in our proposed budget, as service levels, again, will continue as in this current fiscal year. The proposed fiscal year 21 budget includes $13,200 to maintain our Paramount Works app, which has recently been upgraded on the back end to take over our previous internal work order system. We coordinate over 2,000 requests annually, and now both systems will be integrated, and that will allow for a more efficient system, not just for our clerical personnel, but also for our guys out in the field who can receive and input data directly from their smartphones. And I would like to bring this up to you at a later meeting and show you what this is all about, so I will coordinate that later. Our facilities budget is about $1.7 million and includes both in-house and contracted services that allow us to maintain all city-owned facilities. We maintain approximately 130,000 square feet of building space annually, and that could be in the form of electrical, plumbing, or carpentry needs. That budget also includes security system maintenance for all of our facilities and disaster response purchases and services as we continue to go through this COVID-19 phase. The city has made significant improvements in this landscape area, which were recently recognized with our Tree City USA status now 2 years in a row. Our proposed budget includes about $2.2 million for our landscape division, which covers general maintenance of our landscape area citywide by both in-house personnel as well as contract services. Our trees are on a 3-year trimming cycle, which allows us to get to every one of our 7,000 plus trees within a 3-year period. This budget also includes funding for our weed abatement services, which are contracted out, and now include the use of organic compounds as opposed to the controversial glyphosate, and also known as Roundup. I'll have to admit, though, that these organic compounds are not as effective as Roundup, as they do not kill the roots. Therefore, additional applications are needed throughout the year in order to keep up with our weed abatement efforts. In terms of our road maintenance, the proposed budget includes approximately $1.8 million, and that is consistent with previous years. This includes funding for both in-house personnel and contracted services that allow us to maintain the city's 72 miles of street and alleys. This budget allows us to maintain those streets, sidewalks, street legends and striping, curb and gutters, street signs, and traffic signal needs. This also includes funding for our required street sweeping services, which are split in half between our trash hauler and the city. Again, this also includes some carryover funding from fiscal year 20 to complete our catch basin insert installation, which will be paid for with anticipated Measure W funds, which is the countywide stormwater fees that I will go into on the next slide. So I mentioned the stormwater fee that is a countywide measure that passed back in November of 2018, and it's called Measure W. The implementation of Measure W has been delayed in terms of getting the local portion of the funds over to the cities. The county is currently working on that transfer fund agreement, and that should be coming to the council soon. Eligible expenses under Measure W are those that relate to stormwater programs, such as catch basin inserts, the purchase of a street sweeper that would allow us to clean certain hotspot areas of town more often than once per week in order to prevent debris from entering our storm drains and ultimately ending up in the river, which of course leads to the ocean. Measure W funds can also be used to fund our watershed group costs. These watershed groups were formed many years ago as part of the 2012 LA stormwater permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. That permit, which is about to be renewed, places a lot of water monitoring requirements on cities. So in order to comply with the permit, many cities banded together and form watershed groups that can conduct this monitoring and other requirements as a group in order to achieve economies of scale and be much more efficient. The budget for our engineering division is about $772,000, and it includes about $288,000 of general engineering and traffic engineering that is contracted out through Wilden. This year, we were successful in receiving $72,000 from the state to prepare our local roadway safety plan, which is estimated to cost $80,000. This plan will allow us to prepare for future federal and state funding that could be used for roadway safety improvements, which were previously done under the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP. This division also includes some of the stormwater requirements I shared with you on the previous slide. In terms of our water operations budget, our water system is broken down into three sections. We have water production, water distribution, and customer service. The proposed budget for fiscal year 21 maintains current levels of services for all sections. Our water production section is charged with obtaining the water, and that budget includes almost $5 million. That covers replenishment assessments for all groundwater that is pumped through our water wells, recycled water purchases, and purchases of importer water on an as-needed basis. And as a side note, the cost of importer water continues to rise, and that does not include significant increases that are foreseen given the current situation at Central Basin. Our water distribution section handles the infrastructure that is needed to get water to our residents. That budget includes approximately $2 million of funding that is, again, needed to maintain our water system in terms of pipelines, valves, and overall routine maintenance. Our water customer service section includes our meter reading personnel and equipment that is required for the performance of those tasks. Our meter readers submit the data to the finance department for billing purposes. That essentially concludes the Public Works Operations budget, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have before I jump onto the capital improvement section of the budget.
Anyone? Okay, let's move on, Adrianna.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll go into capital improvements, and that is on page 139 of your proposed budget document. Our proposed capital improvement projects budget for fiscal year 21 is estimated at about $18 million, which comprises of $7 million for our water well project, close to $11 million for our street improvement projects, and approximately $1 million for improvements at our parks, and about $170,000 in miscellaneous projects. As indicated previously, this coming year will be a challenging year given the current economic climate, not only in the state but nationwide. So therefore, the proposed CIP budget includes projects that are funded through either grants, special funds, or capital reserves. So in terms of our street projects, we'll have our arterial street improvements, our local neighborhood streets project, and we'll also have two phases of our West Santa Ana Branch Bikeway Trail project and the preliminary design for the Rosecrans Bridge. And I'll go into each one of these in the next slides. So the fiscal year 21 budget includes our carryover for fiscal year 20 locations. However, we have also added the rehabilitation of various locations along Rosecrans and Somerset Boulevards from city limit to city limit. which will allow us to extend the life of those two sections for about 10 more years. In terms of our local neighborhood streets, these streets may seem familiar to you, and that is because we recently took this item to you for approval as part of our SB1 funding requirements. As you can see, we have 2nd Street from Paramount to Downey and 1st Street from east of Indiana. Additionally, we have a small section of Colorado north of Rosecrans and south of Rose, and we also have both Pearl and House Street segments west of Paramount Boulevard and Century Boulevard from about Ruther Avenue to close to Barlin Avenue. We are currently working with the City of Downey for a portion of Century as that falls within the City of Downey boundary, and so a cost-sharing agreement will be coming to you soon for that section. In terms of the Rosecrans Bridge Assessment, you may recall we recently brought this item to you for approval, and that was the preliminary design of the bridge, which utilizes federal highway funds. That project will determine whether a complete tear down and reconstruction of the bridge is needed or if a rehab would suffice. That preliminary evaluation should be completed by the spring of next year. In terms of our West Santa Ana Branch Bikeway Trail, we are currently working on the design phase for Phase 2, which extends from Somerset and Hayter to about Paramount Boulevard and runs along the LADWP right-of-way. That project is funded primarily by Caltrans Active Transportation Funds. And we were also successful in obtaining $2.9 million in state funds through the California Natural Resources Agency under the Urban Greening Program, which was a very competitive program, for Phase 4 of this project. And that runs westbound from Garfield and connects with the LA River. We will be getting started on that design phase soon. So please keep in mind that the work for both of these segments, both segment 2 and segment 4, for fiscal year 21 is strictly design work. Oops. You may also remember these as well. We brought this to you last month. This is based on the recommendations of 2 traffic studies, one for Alondra at the intersection of Passage Avenue, and the other one for Garfield near what used to be 70th Street. We have reached out to Long Beach, as the majority of that intersection is shared with them, to see if they can cost share for the project, and we're still awaiting a response. In the meantime, though, both of these are anticipated to be designed this coming fiscal year. A few years back, the city initiated a revamp of our monument signs and started replacing those at the entrances to the city. This coming year, we're including the design and construction of a new monument sign for our Civic Center area, which would carry a similar look as that of our entryway monument signs, but would be distinct in that it would highlight Paramount Civic Center, which of course includes City Hall, the Clearwater Building, and the hospital. This will again allow us to carry that same fresh, modern century feel to the Civic Center area. Next is our bus stop installation. The proposed fiscal year 21 budget includes about $250,000 in transportation funds for the construction and installation of bus shelters throughout town. Given the number of shelters citywide that would need to be replaced, we anticipate this project to be broken down into 3 phases, with this being the first phase. The plan is to bring the same downtown mid-century modern feel to the entire city and improve the look of our major boulevards first. In terms of our park and landscape improvements, the proposed fiscal year 21 CIP budget for park improvements total about $1.1 million. And this includes the replaster and deck repairs for the Paramount Pool, estimated at $810,000, with about $700,000 of those funds coming from Measure A funds, and also $40,000 from the California Natural Resources Agency and $80,000 from Capital Reserves. Next are improvements at Progress Park Plaza, estimated at $285,000. And the replacement of the stolen sculpture at the Paramount Pond, which is $14,000 and will be coming from the Art Fund. And I'll go into detail on those in a minute. So the Paramount Pool replaster and deck repairs is essentially that. The pool is in desperate need of replastering, and the deck is worse in some areas than others. The project would also include a slide in lieu of the existing diving board, and will also replace the equipment currently in the splash area of the pool. Funding for the Progress Plaza facility improvements is coming from the California Natural Resources Agency as part of Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon's funding allocation. This would be a modernization of the interior, particularly in the auditorium. Improvements will include new flooring, the change out of windows and doors, reconfiguration of the current storage room to allow for additional storage, and bring in utility hookups for a very needed washer and dryer. Also, as part of this project, we will be retrofitting lighting to LED and modifying the interior wall in the auditorium, which will allow for a more modern backdrop. In terms of the pond sculpture, unfortunately, we recently experienced a theft of one of our art sculptures located at the pond. The picture on the right of your screen shows the original art piece that was installed, which includes 3 bronze statues. And the picture on your left shows the remaining 2 sculptures. We have included $14,000 from our art fund in the proposed fiscal year 21 CIP budget to replace that missing sculpture. Also, you may remember we recently presented an item to you for the approval of a security camera system to be located at the pond, and that project will soon be completed. In terms of miscellaneous improvements, we have some of those improvements listed for you in the fiscal year 21 budget, and that includes the design of our Civic Center fountain upgrades, the purchase of additional trash cans, and a very needed upgrade to our phone system, as Andrew indicated before. So I'll go into each one of those. The Civic Center fountain is really basically the Civic Center fountain is the focal point in our Civic Center area. There are essentially 2 water fountains, the one that you see on your screen and another one which is closer to the hospital. Our original plan was to simply replace some of the tile that had either come off altogether or was so badly damaged that needed to be removed. However, we've been experiencing more mechanical issues with both fountains that includes leaks, and these leaks, of course, have been repaired time and time again, but these repairs have become more and more challenging. So the upgrades to the fountain are no longer just aesthetics, but also technical and mechanical in nature. So with this in mind, we had to take a step back and really reevaluate what is needed. Both of these water fountains need extensive work, so we have included monies from our capital reserve funds in the CIP budget to design both of them. Next is our trash can replacement. As you know, we have been adding more trash cans citywide as part of our Pick It Up Paramount program, and the goal is to allow our residents the comfort of having trash cans strategically positioned so that they can dispose of their items properly as they are on their walks. As I had indicated in a previous slide, we also included funding for the retrofit of our existing bus shelters. So the plan is to place the new trash cans that are part of that new modern bus shelter program throughout our major streets. We have included monies from our Prop A allocation for the purchase of these trash cans that will allow us to complete the transition of trash cans along Paramount Boulevard from city limit to city limit. Now, in terms of our phone system upgrade, we are really trying to move away from the phone system that you see on your screen. It has become more and more difficult to provide excellent customer service to the public when our phone lines are experiencing technical deficiencies. We have included $50,000 in the proposed fiscal year 21 CIP budget to upgrade our very antiquated phone system. Now, in terms of water system improvements, you're all very familiar with our Water Well 16 project, which essentially takes the bulk of the cost identified in our water CIP budget. Our budget continues to carry funding for our annual service installation and hydrant replacement needs, as well as our annual valve replacement program. So our Water Well 16 project is already starting, and you will be seeing mobilization of equipment there soon. This is the most significant improvement to our water system. It provides water reliability and will eventually allow us to minimize the rising cost of potable water that is seen statewide. Well 16, along with our existing Well 15, will become the backbone of our water system. This is extremely important because groundwater is not only consistently a reliable source of water, but is by far less expensive than imported water. Potable water, whether it's imported water coming from either the Colorado River or the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, along with groundwater pumped from groundwater wells, must meet stringent water quality standards set by the state. So in the long run, water agencies that invest in their groundwater production infrastructure, as is the case with Paramount, will be able to provide much more cost-effective water to their residents, being that groundwater is typically half the cost of imported water. So that project is set to start pretty soon. That is the end. That is the end of the capital improvement projects. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have before I turn it over to Karina for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Adrianna.
Okay, with that, we'll move over to Karina for the wrap-up.
Okay, thank you, John. Moving on to water utility. Earlier we mentioned we are not proposing a water rate increase. However, we want to show you a water rate survey we do every year. Once again, you can see that not only we're providing high level of service in our water utility, we're providing it with the lowest rate possible in the region. This is all the neighboring agencies are providing water. We're at $51.71 as compared to, could be 3 times higher in our neighboring city. Our water fund is running a deficit, mainly because of the water well construction. The loan that we obtained did not cover the entire construction cost. Also, because of lower revenue expectation, we're anticipating a $1.66 million deficit in the water fund. Later on in our fund balance, I'm going to show you how we're going to absorb this deficit. Two weeks ago, when we presented the budget to you, we mentioned that our deficit for current year is $1.466 million, and next year's surplus is approximately $256,000. There was some minor changes I want to bring it to your attention. One, for current year, we have an increase in engineering costs for about $54,000. We also carry over the park signage from current year to next year for $20,000. Therefore, you'll see an addition of $20,000 in fiscal year 21's budget. Andrew had just mentioned that we're adding a $71,000 AV system to the budget using the PAIC fund, but that does not impact the general fund here. So here's the number. At proposed, at 2 weeks ago, we mentioned the deficit will be $1.466 million deficit. Now that we're adding $54,000 engineering costs and minus $20,000 carryover next year, the new deficit is now $1.5 million. Now, I want to point out in fiscal year 20, this is not the only deficit. We're able to use CIP reserve to absorb some of the CIP projects. Also, last fiscal year, as we closed the book, we earmarked some funding to pay down the unfunded liability to pension. And we want to keep the momentum. This is something we started a few years ago. So in current year's budget, we also allocated $431,250 from the general fund to pay for that. And so that brings the deficit to $1.5 million. For next year, initially the surplus was $256,000 when I presented to you on June 2nd, 2 weeks ago. Now with the addition of $20,000 park signage that I mentioned earlier, that moved over from current year to the next. Now we bring down the surplus from $256,000 to $236,050. If we put the deficit and surplus on a historical chart, here we are. As you can see, we rarely use our reserve in general fund. However, we do feel that with the COVID-19, this is catastrophic, this is extraordinary, and so we feel comfortable of using the general fund reserve to absorb the deficit at this time. And next year, you'll see a surplus for fiscal year 21 for now. Now, if we fast forward and see the ending balance, the rainy day funds that we have saved up that John has mentioned earlier, at the end of the year for fiscal year 21, because of a surplus we post, general fund will be at $11.6 million. And for restricted fund, we'll have $9.4 million. For water fund, we mentioned there is a $1.6 million deficit, and we are using the reserve to absorb that. And even with that, we still have $3 million, which we are comfortable at this time to keep it at that level. That wraps up the city's budget, and if you have any question, I will be happy to answer that. Otherwise, we'll go into successor agency.
Yeah, why don't we move right into the successor agency, the Housing Authority, Karina, and then we can wait for the questions at the end.
All right, successor agency, we just winding down the business of our former redevelopment agency, fulfilling the responsibility for bond issues or other third-party contract that we have. The budget reflects all the enforceable obligations on our ROBs and the tax and increment we expect to receive to pay for those obligations. That's it for successor agency. And as for housing, that's the holdover funds that we got from the former redevelopment agency. Fiscal year 21, we are proposing a senior housing project in the tune of $400,000 and also another property development project for about $310,000. With that, that wraps up our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and if not, it's recommended the City Council read by title only and adopt these 3 resolutions.
Madam Mayor, before I turn it back over to you, just a reminder, we do have public comments, both verbally that we'll call right now when you're ready, and then also written, and these are, again, for the budget. And then the discussion can begin, and then we'll move over to the approval of the budget, which are the resolutions that are seen before you, and we'll need a vote on each one of those. Additionally, I was just informed that Councilmember Guillen had to get off the line for another commitment, so she has left the meeting. So we will need the once we get to the Paramount Housing Authority, we'll need Vice Chair Cuellar Stallings to open and close that meeting.
Okay, so let's hear from the speakers.
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Gurdeep Kaur. Hi, I'm contacting you regarding your request for public comment for item number 6 on tonight's agenda. You are now being broadcast live to the City Council. Your public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and I'll give you notice when you have 20 seconds left, and your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Gurdeep Kaur, and I'm commenting on the proposed budget before you tonight. The city's budget posted on the website showed an allocation of 28% to public safety, while this presentation shows a 35% budget allocation. I think this is a discrepancy that should be addressed in the interest of transparency. It is unacceptable that as a city we have no say in negotiating this contract. If Public Works can negotiate a 0% increase, why can't we do that with public safety? As our representatives, you could collaborate with other cities to renegotiate this collectively. Overtime isn't allowed in any other department without screening.
Ms. Kaur, we're having some trouble hearing you. We'll go ahead and restart your time, and I apologize for that, but the sound from your end is a little bit muffled, and I think we're having just a little bit of trouble hearing you. So maybe you could just try again, please.
Sure. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Gurdeep Kaur. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I am commenting on the proposed budget before you. The city's budget posted on the website showed an allocation of 28% to public safety, while this presentation shows a 35% budget allocation. I think this is a discrepancy that should be addressed in the interest of transparency. It is unacceptable that as a city we have no say in negotiating this contract. If Public Works can negotiate a 0% increase with their contract, why can't we do that with public safety? As our representatives, you can collaborate with other cities to renegotiate this collectively. Overtime isn't allowed in many other departments without strict scrutiny.
and here in public safety, we allow it generously. And if I heard correctly, the city laid off its own public works employees, and yet we're giving others pay raises. That's disappointing to say the least. Furthermore, I did not hear anything about upgrading the pedestrian walk signals to be touchless, given the concerns of COVID-19. It only makes sense to try to make the city as safe as possible. We are in a recession right now with record high unemployment, and agreeing to an increase in the sheriff's contract is not supported by the community. The survey of community priorities is 2 years old. Cities across the country are working to reimagine what safety looks like. Cities are reassessing their budgets, and just yesterday, the city of LA heard the people's budget. Paramount cannot increase the public safety funding at a time when community members are actively demanding a decrease. Issues like street racing and fireworks should not be handled by armed police officers. That is an unnecessarily escalated response. Clearly, these old tools and old strategies are ineffective. There are strategies you can employ into the very design of the streets that mitigate nuisances such as street racing. So you need to dedicate resources to redesign those streets. I know there are tools such as road diets that work, and yet we don't employ them. The council member had asked for a solution. More police is not the solution. Studies conducted over decades prove this. We need to stop putting band-aids on our issues through criminalization and work on the bigger picture through infrastructural improvements. The increased contract comes at a cost to other departments and negotiates other needs in the city. Furthermore, it is concerning that Measure H funding was being directed to public safety. Voters approved the tax on ourselves. We put forth our dollars in support of our unhoused neighbors. What we expected from this tax revenue was not more patrol, but social services. The budget showed that Measure H funding was under the public safety budget as well. The city should have an in-house social services division as other cities do, even if it begins with just one position of a social worker. I would like some clarity on where that $115,000 originally allocated.
Ms. Carr, you have
to public
20 seconds
services,
left.
under public safety is now being directed. These funds need to be reinvested in new services for residents today. I see that after-school programs are being cut while we're increasing funds for the police. How do you support this? We need to spend money to build our community. To reiterate, I recommend you implement a moratorium on any additional increases in the contract with public safety in the form of personnel or funding.
Ms. Carr, your time
I
is up.
strongly recommend that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other emails or speakers, Mr. Moreno?
Yes, we do. We do have 3 written comments, but I believe all 3 are similar. I'll turn it over to our city clerk, Ms. Heidi Luce.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. There were 3 comments submitted. They are all identical. They were submitted by Andrew Mondragon, Rigoberto Mondragon, and Kirian Perez. So I will read it just once into the record since it is the same.
And Ms. Luce, if I can interrupt real quick, I'd like for you to pause after each section because we do want to address each of these. Thank you.
Thank you. This letter is to comment on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. We oppose the proposed budget before the City Council today and request you revise it. The City of Paramount needs to reevaluate its priorities as well as how it handles its budget process each year. The first item, lack of transparency. The draft of the budget that was prepared at the City Council meeting on June 2nd and the one that is presented today vary drastically. In some cases, certain positions and budget line items are no longer even listed. We feel the community needs to be brought into the budget planning process through participatory budget strategies.
Great. If we could pause there, and I'd like to have Ms. Karina Lamlou, our finance director, address that one comment. Karina?
Sure, John. I can confidently say that there are no drastic change in the budget between June 2nd and now. There's absolutely no position change since then. There are a few minor changes which I did lay it all out in the slide presentation toward the end of my portion. There are 2 changes, one an increase in engineering costs in the current year's budget for $54,000. We're moving the park signage $20,000 from current year and carry over next year. Andrew mentioned that there is a $71,000 AV system at Progress Park. Those are the items that have been changed since 2 weeks ago. Other than that, there is no other changes. As far as transparency goes, the budget has been posted on the city website on the homepage, as well as the finance tab since May 29 before the June 2nd meeting. Nothing has been changed. And I'll be happy to go through that with any residents if they have any questions, and they can verify the dollar amount from page to page. And those are the only few changes we have made, minor changes, and that's it.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lamlou. Ms. Luce, if you can continue.
Thank you. This comment relates to Measure H. The previous draft of the budget showed $115,000 from Measure H to be dedicated to homeless services under the public safety budget. We disagreed that our voter-approved Measure H dollars to be given away to an already well-funded public safety department. This is an insult to the voters who approved this tax increase on ourselves to provide services to the unhoused. We did not approve higher taxes on ourselves to give more money to the police's already bloated budget. What is more disturbing is that this line item has disappeared altogether in this draft, and we are simply left with a vague revenue line item with no indication of where this is going. We request that the $115,000 previously proposed to be dedicated to the development of services for assisting housing insecure residents. This can be done through dedicating these funds to the Housing Authority. If that is not possible, it can alternatively be allocated to the development of a social services division within our city. This can start with just one position in the form of an in-house social worker that has background in mental health services and vulnerable populations. This budget will only grow as the years go on. We cannot allow this funding to be stolen away just because it is not enough for grander plans at the moment. The planning department may be a good fit for the moment as they work with long-term visions for the city and respond to the recently published regional housing needs allocation numbers and update their housing element in accordance with state law. This will allow them to prepare proactive measures in response to the ever-increasing housing crisis. When we say we want to house the homeless, we do not mean in holding cells.
I'd like to now introduce Adrianna Lopez, our Public Safety Director, to address the concerns about the homeless grant. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, thank you, John. I will start by saying that the amount that was included in the budget is part of our grant, and as you may recall, we received a grant in the total of $154,000. That was actually a second part grant. The first grant was awarded to us in 2017 when we created a plan to prevent and combat homelessness. In that plan, we worked with an agency, a nonprofit agency called PATH, which stands for People Assisting the Homeless. And the plan was approved by the City Council. The plan included goals and objectives, and one of the objectives was to apply for a grant. Once again, that was in the amount of $154,000. I just want to point out that this grant is part of the public safety budget, but if I could remind you that there are 5 divisions, including administration and support services. This actual grant falls under the direct supervision and overseeing of a management analyst who is non-sworn and is tasked with becoming our homeless liaison. He works with the host team, which is a specialized team from the Sheriff's Department, and HOST stands for Homeless Outreach Services Team. In addition, we also work with LAHSA, which stands for Los Angeles Homeless Authority. So we have 3 entities that are working directly to address the issue with homelessness. The grant that falls under the Measure H grant, not one single penny is used for overtime for law enforcement or any overtime for city personnel. It is strictly used to help the homeless directly. As part of the grant and the plan, we broke this grant into 3 phases or 3 categories. One was rental assistance, and the original amount was allocated as following. $100,000 was for rental assistance, $44,000 was to secure 2 beds at the Bell Shelter for Paramount residents that were facing homelessness, and then $10,000 was for Safe Storage Program, and that basically was to allow us to buy storage where we could securely secure the belongings of any homeless person who was either going into rehab or assisting some type of medical facility, because oftentimes homeless people do not want to enter any type of facility, unless their belongings are stored. So I can say with confidence that the $154,000 has not been used in any way, shape, or form for law enforcement. As a matter of fact, with the COVID, the $44,000 that was allocated to the Bell Shelter was reallocated for rental assistance, and as of today, the Kingdom Causes, who's a nonprofit organization that's managing this part of the grant, has been able to assist approximately 24 Paramount families from becoming homeless during this crisis.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lopez. Ms. Lusky, you can continue.
The next item relates to public safety. The proposed budget allocates approximately 30% of the total operating expenditures to public safety. This is the largest budget allocation to a single department. As the budget report states, although there is a significant increase in the contract with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the staffing level of deployment remains the same. We cannot, as a city, support an unfounded increase while we have rocket-high unemployment nationwide. We do not agree with increasing the sheriff's budget. The previous draft proposed a nearly $800,000 increase, and this is a great reduction. However, we still feel that this $250,000 increase should not be approved. There should be no increase, and in the future, we need to look to slowly decrease this budget in order to invest in other parts of our community.
Thank you, Ms. Luce. And Madam Mayor, Council, I'll address this one. Just for clarification, the Sheriff's Department rate increase is not determined by the city and cannot be negotiated like other contracts that we have with other agencies. The LA County Board of Supervisors approves the rate each year, and it's the same rate that all 44 cities who contract with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department pay. So in other words, that rate is set, and it's not inclusive of only raises to personnel. It includes other factors such as vehicles, equipment, overhead, etc. So that's what we are looking for the rate increase. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Luce for the final part of this public comment.
The next section, reprioritize and reallocate. At a time when cities across the nation are looking to drastically reshape public safety in our neighborhoods, we urge City Council to not hold Paramount back, but to help us move forward. We deserve a city that prioritizes smart growth strategies, one that evaluates and invests in its future. We urge you to invest these resources into advanced planning and the incorporation of progressive policies. Furthermore, the reduction in the public safety budget needs to be redirected to help improve our city. It is not enough to simply earmark certain funds for future increases in public safety. Rather, those funds should be invested actively to improve our city today. We are pleased to see increases in our community development and public works budgets. Hopefully, this can mean the speedier implementation of improvements such as bike lanes, metro, and more tree-lined streets. Nevertheless, we urge the City Council to provide room in the budget, not just for highly visible capital improvements, but more holistic improvements in the services the city provides to address the needs of all of its residents. Overall, we urge the City of Paramount to incorporate participatory budget practices to improve transparency and directly engage the community to address its needs.
Great, thank you, Ms. Luce. Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and address this area as well. As you heard, there are calls for investment in the future, such things as smart growth. Just so you know, the budget that was presented before you tonight did include over $750,000 in updates to our housing elements, our design guidelines, and specific plans. In fact, one of them is the housing plan for the Metro Station area. Additionally, we're developing plans for the bikeway, as you heard as well, and that expenditure exceeds over $3 million. The budget did show correctly that there was a 35% that is spent on public safety. What that means is that we spend 65% on all other municipal services. To put things in perspective, many cities who have their own PD spend the opposite. That is, 65% is spent on public safety and 35% is spent on other things. So In essence, this does allow the city council to allocate money to the needs of all residents, including seniors, youth, and students. And I believe that was the end of our public comments related to the budget, Madam Mayor?
No, sir. There's one additional comment.
There's one additional. I'm sorry, Ms. Luz. One more.
That's okay. This comment is from Paramount resident Antonio Beltran. This letter is to comment on the proposed budget for the fiscal year of 2020-2021. I am writing you to request you revise this proposed budget. As our nation moves to improve by evaluating our collective priorities, we must take action and follow suit. We are demanding reallocation of resources, divert funding from public safety, and reallocate those funds to programs that focus on community support, such as STAR, PEP, and homeless crisis. To be clear, the approach to this type of crisis should not be simply incarcerate or relocate. This crisis is mental, physical, and financial health issue. This crisis is a mental, physical, and financial health issue. We need to educate ourselves in what the root causes of issue our community members face so as to provide appropriate resources. We need to start by providing more mental health support, crisis counselors, and the like in schools as we transition to eventually eliminate the need for school resource officers. I would also encourage you to make this information more easily accessible to those in our community who have less formal education and those that may not have access to the City of Paramount webpage. Make it so they are included in the decision process. Thank you for your time. That concludes the comments.
Great, Madam Mayor. So staff is now available for any questions, and then we await your vote on the budget.
All right. Let me begin by thanking staff for in-depth presentations and all the information, and for presenting us with a budget that is the many needs and the priorities that the community has identified to us. And with that, I would like to open it up for questions or comments from my fellow council members.
Yes, this is Vice Mayor Olmos, and I think want to kudos again to the staff for taking the time this week to explain in detail your guys' backup to us. Sometimes it's hard to understand the budgeting and numbers, but you guys did a great job, very thorough in explaining that, and I really appreciate you helping us out this week.
This is Councilmember Queristani. Thank you all. Thank you for spending the time with us and giving us a thorough report of our budget. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Guayo, did you want to say anything? I'm sorry.
Yeah, really same thing. It was just so in depth, and it really does help to see just the breakdown of the departments, and helps us better understand so that we can turn around and give this information to the residents because they do have questions. So thank you to our finance department.
Okay, with that, we're going to look at number A, number 20020, and I would be looking for a motion.
This is Councilmember Queristani. I motion for the resolution in number 20020.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. I second that.
Okay, resolution number 20020 has been moved by Councilmember Queristani, seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes.
And we'll let the record reflect that Councilmember Guillen has left the dais or the meeting.
Thank you, Heidi. With that, we'll move on to resolution number 20021.
So moved, Olmos?
Councilmember Queristani, second.
Okay, resolution 20021 has been moved by Vice Mayor Olmos, seconded by Councilmember Cuellar Stallings. May I have a roll call?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. We'll move on to resolution 20022.
I make a motion to read by title only and adopt resolution number 20022. This is Councilmember Agua.
I will second. This is Olmos.
Okay, resolution number 20022 has been moved by Member Aguayo, seconded by Vice Mayor Olmos. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Thank you very much again, staff, for that report. And again, I would like to encourage anybody who has questions about the budget to take advantage of the finance director's office to sit down with you and go over any questions that you may have. Thank you, Karina. We'll move on to item 7, public safety service agreement.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, our Public Safety Director, Ms. Adrianna Lopez, will handle the item. Ms. Lopez?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, council members, this is something that I discussed as part of my budget. This include the agreements for all city management services, which is the crossing guard company, and also the agreement for Detective Bureau consultant Dave Baton. These are agreements that have to be renewed on an annual basis, and with that, it's recommended that the city council approve and authorize the mayor or the city manager to enter into these agreements. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, with that, we'll do item A, the school crossing guard services. Into motion?
So moved, almost.
Second,
Aguayo.
Okay, item A, all city management services incorporated school crossing guard services has been moved by Vice Mayor, almost seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, item B, the Detective Bureau consultation services.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. I move to approve the item.
This is Quer Stallings. I second it.
Okay, Detective Bureau consultation services, moved by Councilmember Aguayo, seconded by Cuellar Stallings. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to comments and committee reports, council members. And I'm going to go right to the middle of the pictures here and pick you, Isabel.
Thank you, Mayor Lemons. I actually feel like I kind of have a lot today. First, thank you to the residents that actually have reached out to I think all of us, and expressing their concerns. It definitely helps me better understand the needs of our residents, so that we can come up with potential solutions. We all live here, so we have some of the same frustrations, all the stuff that's going on. So a lot of great ideas and things that are being put into motion. So hopefully we can, resolve some of these issues. And also, I believe the first speaker, her name I believe was Ms. Rebecca. I didn't catch the last name. She spoke up about the Black Lives Matter, and actually I was called out for not speaking out on this before, and I took the time to address it at that moment. And again, the death of George Floyd and so many others, it's not okay. I have nieces and nephews that are Black, and in not speaking out, I became part of the problem. So I think with what some of the speaker, I think she had some great suggestions that maybe we should look into, and go from there. The other thing, there's a few other things. If you have not submitted your census, please do it. There's still time. The funding we receive is tied directly to that. So don't forget, don't wait. And then it'll be too late. Let's see. Also, students that are 18 and under, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8:30 to 11, the district at Collins, Los Cerritos, Moakler, or Wirtz. They're offering the grab-and-go meals. And then Tuesday through Fridays from noon to 1, they also provide lunch at our Paramount Library for students, same thing, 18 and under. What else? Oh yeah, don't forget the Facebook Live concert this Friday from 6 p.m. to 7:30, featuring Grupo Neblina. They're a lot of fun, so I really want to see a lot of people on that. It'll be something fun, something different. And I think finally, again, congratulations to the Paramount High School graduate class of 2020. They, you know, I'm so proud of just their accomplishments during such a interesting time. I think that's it from me. I feel like it was a lot, but
Yes, I just want the community to know that they heard speed racing, the donut driving. We're going to monitor it with the strict intentions with our deputy sheriffs. In my neighborhood, the last night was very calm compared to what had been on the weekend, and I thank our deputies. You know, we had a special task force that was just addressing the fireworks situation, and I'm very pleased with them. And I want them to know that we're here and we're hearing you. We understand your concerns, and I received several phone calls, messages through social media, and I'm hearing you, and I'm here to service you, and I will continue working hard in your behalf. Everyone have a safe 4th of July. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Clara Starling. It's almost.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lemons. Basically, I have some committee reports tonight that I'd like to share. At the ad hoc meeting with Paramount Unified School District, we met this past month, and we were able to come up with a drop-off pickup type of a restructuring that we want to pilot. And actually, this will be for the Paramount Park School. And instead of picking up and dropping off at the front of Paramount Park, we are going to be coordinating with the Paramount Unified School District to release students at the east end of the park to hopefully create a safer pickup and drop-off zone at the back of the park. There will be more to come on this, but I did want to share this update with you all. The other update I have is regarding Contract Cities Committee. We met on June 3rd. And this announcement is really for my colleagues on staff. We are having our strategic planning meeting this Saturday, which is 4 hours in the morning. And if there are any topics that you feel that we should be bringing up at Contract Cities, please let me know. And to all the residents, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for your concerns. We are listening. We are here. And happy 4th of July, everyone.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I met my first meeting with Selica. They approved the appointment of board members. They wanted to share that they're thrilled to have Paramount aboard and looking to do great things with the city. Before I go into my closing comments, I would just like to ask John, I know that you have been diligently working on putting together a community forum. I wonder if you could give us a quick update on that. Explain what that's the relevance of that.
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. Yes, I mentioned to the City Council via their weekly memo that as part of the response to the Black Lives Matter movement and what occurred in Minneapolis, the horrible incident, there's more that has to be discussed when it comes to race. So we've turned to our partners in the clergy, or partner, that's Pastor Grady Jones, as well as a couple of stakeholders, Mr. Tony Warfield, who happens to be one of our Public Works Commissioner, but he's a resident here and who was actually at the protest that took place here in Paramount on May 31st. And also Superintendent Ruth Perez. So we are planning a strategy meeting that's going to take place this Thursday. And we're also going to have city staff involved in that strategy meeting. And what I hope to get in the outcome of this is a path forward on how can we develop a series of discussions for the community. The first one being, it would be a virtual meeting that we would host. Obviously, because of COVID, we can't hold any type of in-person town hall meetings. So it would be generally a discussion on race and what is occurring in our society. But I'm looking to them. I'm looking to them to go a little bit deeper into the topics and to give us feedback. And I just don't want it to stop at one conversation. I'm thinking of a series of conversations that could occur. So the meeting that I'm having with them this Thursday, once again, is a strategy planning meeting on the different topics, the dates and times that we can host this in the upcoming future.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. With that, I want to say to all of the residents who called me and emailed me, I hope that you viewed tonight's meeting and that you heard the reports on fireworks and street racing. I just want to assure you that each of us on the city council we're all long-time residents. We live here too. We're invested in the city. So we want these issues resolved as much as we do. They're affecting all of our lives. The illegal fireworks, street racing, have a negative impact on all of us. We need to work together to improve the quality of life for all of us. We're really fortunate, we're really talented, and a really dedicated staff. Many of them have ties to this. They've worked here for many, many years. Others are residents, and all of them, each and every one of them, made a commitment to provide respectful, high-level service. So we hear, and we hope that you heard tonight's meeting, and that you know that we're all committed to finding solutions. And with that, I'll go to staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just a few things. Thank you to the City Council for hanging in there during the long budget presentation, and thank you for your approval. Again, this happens once a year. We adopt the budget, and then we do a mid-year review, which is a lot shorter. But this is very monumental each year when a municipal government adopts their budget. And again, this was a tough one. So thank you very much for hanging in there. And we encourage the public to feel free to contact us for a copy of the budget. It is online, but if you prefer a written version, a hard copy version, please feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to mail that out to you, or you can come by City Hall and pick it up. Just one more thing I do want to mention. Again, there was conversations about the graduating class of 2020. We are planning our own celebration for the class of 2020 at Paramount High School, and we will be you will be seeing the Paramount City Council along with Pete the Pirate from Paramount High School on a double-decker bus this Monday from 12 to 4. So we're going to put out a lot of communication on that, and we hope all the graduating class of 2020 will be able to wave to the City Council as they pass by on a red double-decker bus. So some fun stuff planned for next week. And that concludes the comments from staff.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll adjourn until July 7th. Yeah. Next item up is our successor agency for the Paramount June 16, 2020 meeting. It's called to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
I'm here.
Councilmember Guillen. Councilmember Cuellar Stallings.
Here.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Here.
Mayor Lemons.
Here. Any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we'll move on to resolution, number 20001 under business. We've already had the report, correct? This is starting the budget.
Yes, ma'am. So we just need an approval of the resolution.
Okay,
So moved, almost?
second, Aguayo. Okay, moved by Vice Mayor Olmos, seconded by Aguayo to approve resolution 2000. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen. Oh, sorry, absent. Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. With that, we'll adjourn July 7th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And we'll move into the Paramount Health Authority, and then for Vice Chair Johnson.
Pardon me?
You're going to be chairing the Paramount Authority.
Okay. I call to order the Housing Authority meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aguayo,
I'm here.
Commissioner Lemons,
Here.
Commissioner Olmos,
Here.
Vice Chair Stallings.
Here. Any public comments?
No, ma'am.
May we have a motion to, motion in order?
Mayor Lemons, I move resolution number HA 1-20.
Second, almost?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Aguayo,
Yes.
Commissioner Lemons,
Yes.
Commissioner Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cuellar Stallings.
Yes. And we'll move to the meeting on July 7th, 2020 at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, everyone. A lot of hard work, great meeting. Appreciate everybody's time. Everybody